Welcome to another film club. So we've got The Great Escape, and I'm here as always with Sandy Hewitt and Jay from Nerd Takes.
I'm so excited.
This is going, yeah, I know it's going to be a good one. So yeah, this is going to be I feel in chat. This might be a long one, a long discussion because I like it, and we're going to find out these guys like it, but. I kind of rewatching it. I kind of adore this movie. Let me just go down. I kind of remembered. I really do like it. So that's cool. So we're gonna have a lot of chat about. Chat's been already mad already. There's a lot there. So thanks guys for coming in, joining as usual to the film club. And also Tom B's already gifted 5 memberships. So that's good. And then we got the crowd. Got it. So we got Niku, Wolfie. Darth got it, Davyverse and Mongoose. They all gifted it. So thank you very much, Don B, for that. But hi, everyone in chat. Now, I'm going to reiterate one thing that Sandy says. I hope you've all done your homework because we're going to go in full spoilers. We have to with this one. And then we're going to go into a bit of the history of it, the cast of it, and a little bit in between because I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. But you guys, I think I can't remember who put this on. Was it me or Sandy? We don't know. I can't remember, but this is Jay's. We're breaking him in. So this is Jay's first watch, fresh in the memory now. Watched it this morning. So that's going to be a good take for you because you're going to have a lot of insight as it's literally, I just watched it.
Right,
so
exactly.
And we can forgive that. Jay's just come back from his honeymoon. So
yeah, it's a bit of a busy week.
Yeah, busy week. So he's got time for just a little me and Sandy. So that's very nice. But yeah, Sandy, rewatching it again.
Rewatching it again. I also, I don't know if you put it on or I put it on, but I would have put it on if you put it on. I second it. I'm sure we all gave it our highest ranking for films that we wanted to see and recommend. And I read the book, and then I read another book, and then I read another book. So this film caused me and my little history brain to read the book on which it is based, plus 2 firsthand accounts of the escape that this film was based on. So I'm really excited to talk about the film and the history.
Yeah. That's cool.
That is an awesome poster, by the way. If that's the official poster, that is fantastic.
There was loads of official ones. There's, I'm guessing because it is very cross-country cast. There are a lot of really good posters out there. So yeah, there was this one I found. I was like, that's good. This is where I think they kind of made Steve McQueen the star of the show. But the other ones, if you look, the early ones. He's not the headline. Let's say that was quite interesting to see. He's on that, but just off the bat, Jay, what did you think? Because literally, just from the opening sequence of, and I'm gonna have to say, I did it in the background. Chat, we're gonna have to do it together, like So just. Like this is like we kind of threw it out there. You've never seen it. Did you, before we go into the nitty gritty, do you think it standed up as a movie of the 60s to now?
So to answer that, I would say yes. Going into it, being that it's from, what was it, 1963, I think? So early 60s at that too. I thought it was going to be a bit more dated. And more so in terms of just essentially the technology restraints or kind of constraints they were under back then from, not having the same kind of cameras, the same kind of filming technique, the sound equipment, stuff like that. I thought it would be more dated than it really was. I didn't see it as much. It didn't feel much older than something that would have come out in, early 70s or mid 70s to me, like comparing the way it was filmed in terms of camera and all that kind of stuff to Saturday Night Fever, for example, since we just did that one, that was late 70s. It didn't feel like it was that much older of a film, even though it was about 15 years older, or some 15, 14 years. So that alone kind of struck me as interesting. And then just my general thoughts on it was right out of the gate, it kind of gets you right into it. There's not a lot of like dilly dallying. Like you kind of get in there, and I don't want to start off too much with going into the movie, but you get introduced to the setting of where these guys are, kind of get a very quick understanding of exactly why they are where they are, and then boom, they just start kind of like immediately they're just scheming and planning and trying to do what it is that they're meant to do as soldiers, as we'll probably talk about. One of their jobs to do is try to escape and all that. So they kind of just get right into it, which I really liked as well. But overall, just I really enjoyed this watch. It was a very fun. Kind of seems weird to say that it was fun given the nature of the story, but
Yeah.
it was
But that's part of it.
fun to finally watch this movie.
Yeah.
Given all the hype that you guys had put behind it, and actually see that like, wow, this is actually a very good movie.
An
Yeah.
important part of the conversation of this film is the fun. It is fun. And then you
Right.
feel maybe a little guilty or a little strange about it being fun.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a good reason why that tone is there. And we'll get into it when we get into the film.
Mm-hmm.
Go on. You got the notes up, Sandy?
I've got the notes up. So
Let's go then.
yesterday, this was released in 1963 based on the book The Great Escape, which documented extraordinarily well the Great Escape from Stalag Luft 3 in 1944. So I hope I don't have to tell anyone. This is a true story. The book was written by Paul Brickhill, who was a fighter pilot who had been shot down and was in the camp. He's Australian who had trained in Canada and been part of the RAF. He was not part of the party that escaped, so he was able to document what had happened, leading up to the escape, after the escape, and then after the consequences following the escape. He also wrote The Dam Busters. So this man is a acclaimed historical writer. The cast, I mean, this is just the top tier, right? This is an exceptional ensemble cast in this film. Steve McQueen, Sir Richard Attenborough, James Garner, Charles Bronson, Donald Pleasant, some of those names you see in other war movies of the period. James Donald. Hannes Mesmer is the commandant, portrayed here as von Luger, and James Coburn and David McCallum, and a whole host of supporting actors as well, who are known throughout Europe, actually, and quite a few who had served in World War II. And we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah, I thought of the cast like this. Because you're across the pond, it is it's an American director, but it feels like a British movie. It feels like a British things because they have because they are more like lots of the stars, the British stars. A lot of TV, except for probably Richard Attenborough. They did some good movies, but going after this, they did a lot of big stuff. But the rest of the British cast on that, they are known for the British TVs. Let's say that. So yeah, it was good to kind of go back and see what they did like previously and then after like that, like this thing. So, but yeah, this cast. If somebody gave you this cast, what now? But like a lot of them, like. It was their stepping, they did, a couple of good movies, or a supporting cast in one of that one, James Gardner, he was Maverick, really, on TV show, of course, American, TV show. Later on, it probably got aired in the UK, but this kind of was a platform. So you had a lot of the cast members that now everybody knows, like the top guys, at least, those names. But from this, it was whoever the casting director was, pick the right people, and how they set it off. It was really, really good. So yeah, everybody, you go in, you can guarantee you could pick out of these 5 movies you kind of like from probably the top 5 stars in this easily.
Well, I've already started our chart to rank cast members now. It was this film that caused me to say, okay, now let's start keeping track, because we're going to start seeing some names over and over again, I think, in our list of, the top films that we that we put on the wheel of film. So James, let's assume this was you putting this on first, and why don't you set the scene and take us through the film?
Oh, it's kind of like a RAF guy. So we are set kind of really off the bat. We kind of get the music, and then the convoy of the prisoners' wars going into a new camp. And I don't think they named the camp at the beginning. When they turn up, they kind of like they get dragged in. Kind of politely asked to enter the camp. Really, the Luftwaffe, who are kind of their I suppose guardsmen,
They're
are
captors.
They're captives. And you got, this is the thing, like they are portrayed as not many, like they would have been sergeants, but the main cast you see are all officers. So there's a difference, like the Luftwaffe are treating them slightly with a lot of respect. You get it with the group captain. He's the highest rank, and the Germans and the light soldiers and the commander, who's the Luftwaffe, they salute him first. And I think that is well known. You'd say within the if you're in the military, you would have done that. You know, it's just a mark of respect. Even though you're a prisoner of war, you would have done that. So that was good scene. And of course, so he gets kind of there's two bits to this bit. They kind of divide. They get the group captain kind of goes off, doesn't he, into the commandant or whatever office, I suppose you want to call it, and they do their things. And whilst the rest are kind of milling around, and it goes back and forth for a bit. They're going around the camp. You got a couple of them like having a little look, see what's there, checking out what is this place. You know, it's obvious what they're doing. You know, they're like eyeing up who's here, what's what. You know, it's new. Everything's, I suppose, for a prisoner of war camp, everything's nice and shiny. It's brand new, and they say that. And then you kind of get the commandant go to the group captain. These, you know, you've got everybody who's tried to escape. Company said the bad bunch, isn't it? Really.
So they've put all of the bad eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, to your point about the Lieutenant Ramsey being brought into the commandant's office, that is very historically accurate. That rank to rank respect was there. And I'm going to try not to put too much of the historical comparison in early, but because the film starts out with them saying, we've taken all the worst escapists across the various camps and put them all in one camp. Okay, that did not happen because that would have been stupid. And it was stupid. That was for the movie, that was for the film. But that's when they call them, you know, we've got all the bad eggs and we've put them all in one basket. And the audience knows right away, well, what a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, you've got and well, and and I think that's it, because you get from, you know, like they got their little groups, you know, we were captured there, we moved from camp to camp, and they're like, who's here? You know, trying to find, you know, familiar faces, and they go, such and such is here, you know, such and such is here, and they're like, oh, you know, and then you kind of get that everybody shouldn't be in the same camp straight away. You're like, that would have been a bad one. And then of course later, you've got the kind of, I suppose you call it their nicknames, aren't they? They're like this. They got like the intelligence and the scoundrel and all that. And they're kind of given their job roles and all that. And it's just like, you know, they just got the best of the best for their role. You know, they've got 2 tunnel kings and stuff like that are really good. Was it the Scotsman Ives?
Grounder, the mole.
So
Forger, the whole set of them.
Yeah. But it's I think like off the bat you get like that. I think when the main cast is introduced straight away, that you've got Richard Attenborough. You know, there's the he gets brought in, bit beaten up, and he's brought with the Gestapo, isn't he? And then you've got Steve McQueen's character Hiltz. Or Virgil. He doesn't like getting called Virgil.
Yeah.
And then of course he's kind of eyeing up, and he does the baseball bit to just fight. He just like, I'm gonna test like that like you can see, I'm going to test the water here. You know, he's
Mhm.
doing his little thing, and of course you've got the even when they come in, they're like, that's a look at the size of that cooler. I think that's great because you get that bit a lot. So it's good to go. You're gonna get that, and it's like good. But I when I was watching it, and then the first bit with the baseball, of course, and they kick off, and they're like, oh, I didn't know, you know, the little kind of, I can't remember the German officer calls it, like just the I suppose like the wire, do not cross wire, is it like
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Now it's up in my mind as well.
yeah, kind of, but he calls it something, doesn't he? Like, you know, the no, like it's like no man's land. You
Yeah,
do not press. It's like
essentially, right. Essentially,
like
that's
a
your
dead spot.
warning. Right.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh, what, like plays like he blatantly knows what it is, but he realizes there's a blind spot. So what he's first thing that Steve McQueen's character does is he sees the two towers and he gets there with his baseball ball and glove, and he's like that, and that's you get that kind of you don't know, but that's going to be the iconic. There's going to be some iconic scenes with that, and
There's
he just
also a historical significance to
is there?
that baseball. I'm going to tell you later.
Yeah, but he rolls it out and then he's checking and they didn't see it, and he's like, "Ooh, I think I found a blind spot," and then he kind of crosses and they all kick off, and then now Jay will understand the next scene from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because you watched that where it's a carbon copy with I forgot his name now because he's not in the movie. Leonardo DiCaprio. When he's character that, and they've learned that, and and he's and he carved there's that car. But no, did you? I heard you might have been up for the role of Hiltz, and he's like, oh no, I never had that. And they do that little scene, a bit of groggy CGI, but I like it. It's quite good. But that whole thing is like, you know, and even like Hiltz is cocky to the. Is it? I think it's the commandant. He's like, oh, will you be here when I get out? And he's like, but he ups it. It's like 1 week, 2 weeks, and like that. So he's going to go to the cooler. And then, of course, he crosses. I can't remember if he does go the first time. Does he go with Ives?
He does.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ives is there. Yeah, because Ives takes the doesn't he just does a raspberry, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it's just like a fart noise.
Yeah, just a fart noise. It's like, like that. So, like, you got Ives. He's like, yeah, and then of course, and it's great that bit because Ives is what he's 5 foot. I think he said 5'4", doesn't he? 5'4".
He said 5'4", and Steve McQueen rolled his eyes because he's not 5'4".
Yeah,
he's even smaller than that.
But I like that
scene there is interesting because it kind of sets up Ives' character for the journey he goes on, because he kind of strikes you as somebody who's very nonchalant. I mean, most of the guys in this opening scene seem very nonchalant. They're kind of wandering this new camp, prisoner of war camp, as if it's, army barracks, like they're supposed to be there, just kind of like picking bunks, and they're all really kind of calm and cool in this situation. And then you see him, and he's kind of the little smart ass of the group, and then he seems, undisturbed by the fact that he's going to be in the cooler, all this stuff, and then obviously his character goes on a journey. So it was interesting to see that that's how he kind of gets shown his introduction to the movie. And then obviously, knowing where it ends for him.
So before we leave the beginning scene, I just kind of want to go back to that moment in the commandant's office with Ramsey, who's the ranking officer. So the kind of real leader in the historical Stalag Luft 3 escape was Roger Bushell. And I feel like in the movie, they took his character and turned him into both Ramsey and Big X, the David Attenborough character, because Bushell was Big X, which was the code name for the leader of whatever escape was being planned. At any one camp, there could be more than one X, because there could be more than one escapes being planned. But he was both the ranking officer. He spoke on behalf of the prisoners. He had that relationship with the commandant. And he was also leading the escape. So in reality, because when I first started rewatching the movie, I thought, oh, there's Bushell. And then I thought, no, that's Richard Attenborough. They took aspects of him and turned that into two different characters. But the one quote I wrote down from the book, and there are several quotes from the book that are directly brought into the screenplay, which is great. But to your earlier reference, James, it is the sworn duty of all officers to try to escape. If they cannot escape, then it is their sworn duty to cause
Mhm.
the enemy to use an inordinate number of troops to guard them, and their sworn duty to harass the enemy to the best of their ability. That is recognized in the Geneva Convention as fair play for prisoners of war. And that activity is protected from severe punishment and protected from, for example, you can't be executed for doing that. You can be detained, you can be thrown in the cooler, you can have a moderate amount of rations withheld. You cannot have all your rations withheld, but you can have some small degree of punishment. But you can't be executed for in most cases, for trying to
Yeah.
escape. So I wanted to kind of put that out there because it's an important theme.
Yeah.
It also
If
plays to the tone of the film.
Yeah, if anybody doesn't know, the military actually have very similar now. Like that's why I like the Richard Attenborough character when he gets like from the Gestapo. He's blatantly been literally being beaten up, being tortured, and like had to tell my girlfriend. Like I was like the kind of ruling is you need to wait. Like they know information outside 48 hours is kind of worthless. So if you need to, like, you will get interrogated to 48 hours. After that, your job is to make havoc, and that is
Mhm.
disturb, try and break out, and do anything to concentrate their resources on you. Yeah,
Mhm.
whatever the outcome, that is your job. Now, if you ever get captured, that's it. So anybody like that, and that's what we kind of still get kind of the sentiment, still exactly the same. Is you ever get captured, your job is to escape. That is your job. You are there to cause absolutely havoc to the people who are your captives. That is it. You can be nice, and like James Gardner's, he's the scrounger, and I
Mhm.
think his character is great, and it shows that I'm going to be really nice. That's my play, but I still don't like you, like in a way. So, but yeah, it's yeah. So anybody doesn't know, that's the kind of things. But yeah, it's good. So what is the next scene? So we go from that. We've got is it straight on that Ives and then McQueen have a little bit of a back and forth?
They're
Yeah,
Like
having a little chat.
mhm.
yeah, a little bit of a get to know you. Who are you? I don't know you, but I think Ives kind of takes to him straight away, and then and like Hiltz kind of he has a little soft spot for him, because he thinks like that. And I like the bit back, and he's like, do you have jockeys? Jockeys,
Yeah.
you have jockeys. He's like, of course I do. He's like, brilliant. Yeah, it's and lasses, isn't it? He goes, like lasses down in whatever street he was saying, like from being a jockey. And then you find out quite early on that I think they both say about racing, don't they? Like, I can't remember who says it, and it's like, oh no, it's not. I'm not on about jockeys. I'm on about I'm on about motorbikes and things like
Motorbike.
that. So
Right.
yeah, and it's so McQueen straight away, and it sets it up for a later scene.
Mhm.
Very much so that oh, he's a good he's a good rider. He used to do a little bit of racing, seems like. But yeah, it's it things. But I think like the flow, as like Jay said, the flow up to that, you kind of it has a nice flow. Everything's moving very quickly, but there's elements there. Like I think the only probably I had to go back to is when I watched it, remembering all the names, because there are a lot of different cast members that I like remember. Danny and all that, and you're like, so if I keep doing that as well, I've got their names there. So I was like, because I can't remember them all. But yeah, it's just you introduce like straight away. You kind of like, because there's a lot of doing this like with the cameras, and you're like, you're going cut scene, but you're going like around a camp, and they kind of have like 30 seconds, probably less, with every kind of member of like what
Yeah.
they're doing, and they have a little chin wag, and like Danny and the other Tunnel King, they kind of go have their little say so, and then it's then to the next, and then to the to the officers, and then you kind of realize there's a continuance, I suppose, of a different groups you get. Like I don't get why, and you're probably historical. I always found it weird, like the naval officer. There's probably why he's in, because they're all airmen, really.
I'm wondering, because in the historical account, there's not. Well, I don't know why that person was pointed out. Maybe because also maybe he was a good escaper because they were saying this
Yeah,
camp was
maybe.
for the best escapers. But just because we brought up historical, so there were no Americans in the group that eventually succeeded in tunneling out in the Great Escape. There were Americans in the camp initially when the plan was hatched.
Mhm.
And when a couple of escapes had proven unsuccessful, they were moved to a different camp before this plan actually got rolling. But there are some quotes in the book about that group that were no longer with them that they've lifted and used in the film. So, for example, in the book, the British commanders refer to the Americans as individuals. The Americans, as a group of individuals, are those who, when you give them an idea and just a small means to accomplishment, nothing will get in their way. Basically, you give them an idea and they're going to go and do it. Versus
Mhm.
the British and the others who were methodically planning. And I think you saw something of that in this film in the tasking they give Hiltz in a bit, where he's just impulsive. I think it comes out as impulsive rather than planning and being methodical about something. But in the book, it was actually commended that the Americans that they had known in the camp before they were removed were willing to jump in and help. They were the newest to come into the camp at that point in time. All of the folks who were coming into the camp, if you didn't know them, they were given a cooling off period where, they weren't told the plans because they didn't know if they were spies, if you could trust them. But once they were cleared for communications, they had commended the Americans on their willingness to just jump in and do whatever asked. But then they were split up in the camp. So this group, there was no Hiltz. Hiltz is not based on any of the characters, the historic people who were involved in the escape. And to your point about the names, though, James, I was also trying to keep track of the names, their jobs, and to figure out in my head if there was a true life person that this character was based upon. And there are a few. Others seem to be kind of a conglomeration of a few historic folks, um, but that were,
Yeah.
eventually turned into the character on screen. But there are very few that are direct representations of historical characters. And no Americans, none. Not one, not two, not three. No James Garner.
I must say, I
Nope.
was being really geeky. I kept on trying to figure out what ranks they were. Like, okay, what they got? Every time, something in the background like that. It's like, oh look, that's flight lieutenant, squadron leader. Okay, what's next? Yeah. So that's, I say, it was weird to have the Royal Navy officer. I was like that. So I was like, that's a bit of a weird placement, but yeah, it kind of makes sense that they probably just did it there. That kind of. Yeah, because he was good at what? Yeah, because what is he? He's the I forgot his name. His nickname. He
Which
is
one? Hiltz is the Cooler King.
no, the Asher Pitt. David McCallum's.
Oh, he is
Dispersal, I
The
believe.
Dispersal. That's
right.
it.
He
Yeah.
did the bags of dirt. We're not there yet.
Right,
We're not
right.
at the
Yeah, yeah,
bags
yeah.
of dirt yet. By the way, that was exactly historically accurate. That whole
Yeah.
device,
No
we'll
kidding.
talk about it. That was exactly as it was described in the book. So that was good. But so as the mole, as Ives and Hiltz are heading to the cooler, to your point, you're seeing these little 30-second snippets of all these other characters, prisoners, looking around, taking the place in, but they're already also starting to cause a little mayhem. They're
Mhm.
already looking at, how can I get out of here? In 5 seconds, Danny's got an axe in his hand because there's a group of Russian laborers who are exiting the camp when they're coming into the camp. And the Americans have the ultimate currency. They have their American Red Cross goodie boxes. They're supply kits that they are allowed to get from the American Red Cross. And in those boxes are chocolate and cigarettes, completely 100% historically accurate. And in later evaluations of the contents of those kits, for future wars, um, some countries had challenged whether those quote comforts of home were unfair or lopsided because they were such unequal currency in the countries where they were. Like people would give you their entire set of clothing for one cigarette. People would give you an axe or a pitchfork or a hammer for a little tiny piece of chocolate. So historically, the contents of those boxes have been evaluated and reevaluated to determine whether it's, unfair
there's a
to have
great
it.
scene, and we're going to with James Garner's character,
Yeah.
that with the cigarettes, and then later with the chocolate as well, and all that. So, but yeah, it's good. But I think so we've got Ives and Hiltz. They've had their meeting, and then I think is it now you kind of get this is where Richard Attenborough turns up, doesn't he? I think
yes, I
now
believe right after the cooler scene with because those two are starting to kind of divide. Well, you can tell that Hiltz is kind of working on his plan. I think at that point is when he nicknames Ives' character as the mole. He asks him like, "Oh, have you ever seen a mole thing, or how do moles dig?" So they're kind of concocting their scheme. Like Sandy mentioned, you've got Charles Bronson's characters and a few other kind of random side characters all trying to get out in their way. So at this point, like 4 or 5 people have already attempted escape. Plus, you've got these two planning their escape. And then we move to David Attenborough, Richard Attenborough's character coming in. And now he's kind of like the big cheese in terms of planning these things. So
because I think you get like McDonald and Ramsey saying, "Who's with us?" Like that with and then they say, "Oh no, he's not here." And then of course then he drives up, and then they realize, "Oh, he's here," and he looks battered. He looks like he's suffered a little bit, and and they hand him over. But then he's kind of like relieved to like see. I think still when he's even brought out of the vehicle, he's still a bit dazed of like, where am I? Where are they taking me next? I don't think it's obvious that he hasn't been told. He's probably thought he's sort of maybe for the firing squad or whatever. And then they give him this because there's I can't remember which Gestapo or the SS guy kind of give him warning: if we see you again, if you try and escape again, you will be shot. On like that's it. They kind of draw the line. We've had enough of you. It's like, you've done this too many times. You've caused us too many problems. If you do it again, we kind of thing. So it's good to sign that. And then, of course, he gets introduced again to like a familiar face with Ramsey and McDonald of like, and you can say, "Oh, where are we?" And he's like, "Well, it's brand new. They brought us to this camp." And then they kind of then go into straight away, this is the plan, kind of straight away. And I love that about this movie. It's like no messing around. It's like we know where we are. We've got the outlay. We've got people doing their jobs. It's like they know we've got these people, and they're already doing what we don't really need to order them to do. They're kind of that, like, you got the people walking around. I forgot he's just got to look. The guy who with the I don't want to kind of give it away. Who, when he goes down a tunnel, he's got a big case, and he's like scouting out as well, isn't he? So,
isn't he the disruptor? They call him
yes, that's it. Yeah,
he's called the disruptor. But you'll notice as they're all walking around the camp. By the way, this not historically accurate. There were people at that camp for years. It wasn't brand new. There was a part of the camp that was brand new, but the camp itself wasn't brand new. But as they're walking around, you notice looking at the ground, and I think it is before Hiltz goes in the cooler, there are these kind of pipes drilled into the ground, and he's kind of tapping on those. Those are microphones. So, and it is true that in the real Stalag Luft 3, they did sync microphones that could hear down to 15 feet about underground to stop tunneling. What they don't go into in this film is that these tunnels, these 3 tunnels, by the way, they only talk about 2, Tom and Harry, but it was Tom, Dick, and Harry. There were 3 tunnels. They had to be dug 30 feet down, not 12, not 15, but to avoid the microphones. Also to avoid.
I think they say that in the plan, don't they?
Do they? Okay.
They mention.
They mention it.
If they said it.
They mentioned Tom, Dick, and Harry, and then they mentioned the 30 feet.
Yeah, because like
unbelievable.
Yeah, because they say, "Oh, we could like," because Richard Attenborough's character, he goes, "Look, we're gonna we need to do a mass one. We're going to get 250 out. We're going to call them Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, like that. I think he says that a little bit later. But he's going, I'm going to do 3. We're going to do 3 tunnels consecutive, you know, but we need to go down 30 feet. And it's just like, when you hear that, you're like, whoa. And you actually think, you know, that is a lot of digging. And then that kind of goes into later with, you know, how do you get rid of that thing? Because I think even Danny, it's like, well, we can do it. You know, I think he's one of the first ones. Is like when they're in one of the camps of 50. I think I can't remember what's called 105 or something.
105 and 104, and those historically, it's 104 that was Harry in real life. 123 was Tom in real life.
So but he kind of works out. Well, we just need to do this area, you know, underneath the stove, I suppose, like the things. And he goes, but we need this, we need that, and that's when like James Garner, I can take care of that. He's like, I've got it. Yeah, no worry like that. It's like, and I do like his characters because every time they're like, "How do you do that?" You don't want to know. You just don't want to know.
Because he's also protecting them,
so
that they don't get in trouble or kind of cross over his means of procuring this stuff. You do notice both Hiltz and someone else picks up the ground. I think Danny, and they're kind of looking at the soil in their hands. In the real life story, the topsoil, the 6 inches of topsoil was dark brown. Under it, white sand. That was the problem that the German, and they knew. And every time in the real life story, every time that a tunnel was discovered, it was generally because they were finding the white sand above ground, and they knew there was tunneling going on. So in the real story, there were quite a lot of things they had to figure out in order to disperse the sand. And you'll see later them farming, flowers and potatoes or whatever. That didn't work for very long in the real story. It just didn't, because the soil was lightening, and that's how the other tunnels were discovered.
Well, one thing I really liked about that kind of scene with because again, it's just the pacing of the movie is just like it's moving along. There's nothing really dragging along. It gets you right into it. So right after Richard Attenborough's character comes in, immediately it's this whole scene that we're talking about now. And I loved how everybody comes together as if it is a military briefing. Now, would the Germans have been a little suspicious that everybody was together in one little hut, having this meeting? I'm not sure. So I don't know how accurate that may have been historically, but the way they're kind of just getting this briefing, getting the information, the plan at this point, Big X or Bartlett has already created the plan, given everybody their assignments, and nobody's really blinking. Everybody, it goes to kind of show you how many times all these characters actually have done escapes or attempted escapes, because nobody's blinking. I think the one that maybe caught one of them a little bit of a pause was when he says he needs 250 outfits, and the guy's like, 250? And even then, he could very quickly just like, yeah, well, it can be done. So I really liked how everybody was just military minded in terms of just like, this is the job. It's what we have to do. I don't really care exactly how big the scope is. We're going to get it done one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very military. Like, there's your orders. You're going to do it. And you might go, but hold it. We can do that. But it's a pain. It's going to be a pain in the ass. That's it.
But one way or another, we're going to do it. And
it's like when he says we're going to take 250 out, and he's just like, whoa.
Yep.
Good idea, but what a pain. What a pain. It's on that. So, but I like it as like after that, I like when Hiltz comes out, they instantly come in. What's your idea? Because they know, I'm guessing they know the history of him, of like how many escapes he's tried to do, and they kind of go, "What's your plan?" And then literally that takes to what Sandy said, probably historically, is like with the Americans, we're just gonna, if we can do it, if I can, we're gonna do it. And he's like, "What's your plan?" I'm gonna go. And he's like, "What's the thing?" And he's like, says about, I think the first one is the kind of, I be at front. We've got Ives behind me, and we're going to push all the dirt. Right. We're just going to go
and just kind of replace it behind us.
Yeah, and replace it. And they're like, "Well, but when?" And he's like, "Tonight." It's like, no, that's it. I'm not messing around. We're doing it tonight. It's like, I like that. And then,
because it's so stupid, it just
Yeah.
might work.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
that's and you
exactly.
instantly pick up on the difference between the planning of the American versus the planning of the
exactly.
the Englishman, where it's immediately he's like, it's honestly almost kind of brilliant. It's so stupid it could work. Or and on top of that, you know, you have Big X and possibly McDonald at this point. That I want to say it was probably McDonald in this scene with the two of them there, where they're kind of like, well, you know what, we should kind of let it happen, because if they sniff that out, it'll give them less, you know, it'll make it look like things aren't as quiet as they seem, you know, and give less idea to think that maybe they're doing something in the background. So
I think it is McDonald who said it's so stupid it might work.
I want to say
He's like that. And he's like, oh, he's like, as it goes, that's actually, you know, it's, you know, if you pull it off, you pull it off. If you don't, then it
helps us anyways, because we can kind of, you know, repurpose that into our own plan of being a diversion kind of escape.
Because it is,
again, you just see the methodical planning of them versus,
because they do say that they like, we can't stop every plan. We need to keep it like everybody trying. So you don't see the pockets, so it's probably other people, but you see McQueen doing it quite a lot. Hiltz
I found
doing
McQueen,
that thing.
I found his character to kind of remind me a bit of Paul Newman's character in Cool Hand Luke, where it's just like the repeated attempts at this. You know, none of these attempts at escape have that much planning behind them. It's just, I've got an idea. We're going to see if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, doesn't.
Yeah.
And he just kind of repeatedly is going through his own ideas versus just joining the group, who's got this much better, much more thought out plan of how to properly escape.
Yeah, I don't need to be in a group. He kind of wants to be the loner, doesn't he? He just gets Ives. They kind of have an attachment of like being in the cooler so many times together. Especially the second time they get marched in. I love that. They're like covered in mud and it's like that. And of course, I think this is the second time like when they get marched.
And that's kind of to your point earlier, Stasis, about this feeling like an English movie. I found some of those little bits of humor to be, you know, a little bit not overly smart or anything, but a little bit clever, and kind of that style of humor, that more the English style of humor, where, you know, instead of just showing him get caught, they just kind of have him come back covered in mud. You kind of get a little chuckle like, oh, yeah, you got caught. Your plan wasn't that good. So I thought those little bits were nice.
Yeah, and they just like, they're both like, they're pissed off, but they're smirking kind of like at the officers until they get in. He's like, you got us, you know, it was stupid, but at least we gave it a go. And it's like that. And I like the reactions a couple of times, like there's a very tall German guard, and every time he does the baseball scene, and probably Sandy's probably going that, is like, there's everybody knows it, like Steve McQueen's Hiltz gets his glove every time he goes to walk to the cooler, gets it either thrown to him or he got it, and then instantly the door closes and it and he does the catching. I love
called
that
wall ball, and I have played that myself incessantly in the alley behind our house. But you know, to your point about Hiltz and the mole and Ives, you're now seeing the camaraderie. You're seeing those two. You also see when the bunks are being selected, you see the forger and Henley, you know, Blythe, I think it's his name, and Henley, and the conversation about tea, and you know, it's not proper tea without milk. And 2 seconds later, Henley's back with a can of milk that he stole probably from the commandant's larder. And then you see Danny and who's the other tunnel king?
Willie.
Willie and Danny have now formed a bond too. So you're seeing that, you know, utter dependence on each other, and you know, that commitment, like, hey, you know, and you'll see in separate situations, not going anywhere without you. I'm not going anywhere. I got you.
They do this. This movie does have the pairs, because you have Danny, Willie, Ives, Hiltz. You have McDonald and Richard Attenborough, the Big X. And then you kind of have those are like, they go pairs. Everybody's kind of like pairs off in each other. You can see that, and then they have like the odd kind of ones who join in. It's like that, but. I like that, how they like it is the main ones have like I suppose it's your buddy system in the military, you call it, but it's like, you know, we go together, we do that, you get on my back, and like that. And there's not many of them are the loners. There's like a couple of them that, you know, they can do it by themselves, and that's later on we see that, but they all are all in literally little buddy systems, what I kind of like.
Another thing that kind of stood out in terms of one, the camaraderie, two, the kind of shared ultimate goal between all the prisoners here is nobody seems to be jealous or bitter about anybody else trying to make an escape. You kind of see it right at the beginning when you have Danny's character, Charles Bronson's character, rather, pulling off the little stunt with the cigarettes and trading them for a coat and a pickaxe and all that. He sends, maybe it was Willie at the time, he sends one of his, buddies to go ask two other people to kind of create a diversion. And so they do that in order to let him try to escape. And then when you have Steve McQueen's character telling Big X about his plan, this mole plan, they're not like trying to shut him down or no. I guess what I took from it was that everybody was willing to see anybody escape as if it was like a shared goal. Like, it may not be me who's escaping, but if you do, that's just as good as me leaving, type of thing. So there was that. Again, I think it reinforced the idea of their main purpose at that point being escape or cause as much chaos as you can, and them all being in line with it and being willing to, see another man escape and play a role in that man escaping, even if it means they might not get out on that run themselves, which I just thought was really interesting in terms of the kind of, again, that camaraderie that they all had for, to a degree, strangers. I mean, I think they knew, a lot of them knew each other, I think, from some of the escapes and things like that. So they've probably built relationships through those other prisons they've been in. But, McQueen's character seems to be very new to all of them. And they, again, are just like, okay, if that's your plan, go ahead. I'm just letting you know this is our plan if you want to join it. But if you want to do your own thing, feel free. There was no, bitterness or you can't do that because we're doing this plan. You might mess it up, blah, blah, blah. That it was, like I said, that common shared goal of some people have to escape this place. And I think this kind of plays into the end, which we'll talk about, which is some people have to escape this place, even if it's not all of us. And some of us are just the ones who create the chaos and get caught in the process. We just want to know that some people actually make it out of here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what, like, I know McQueen's character is not historical, but I think that's what they tried to show is he's from an American camp and he's been brought in to the British camp, really. And they take to him. And I think that's what you kind of get if you pull your weight, you do what you do. And it probably at the time, there's probably, I suppose, a bit of British resentment, I suppose, to any, like, the Americans kind of being there. And then they kind of, as you said, they're same as us. They're hardworking. Right. They do what they want. We might overthink, but they get the job done. And I think that's it. And I think that is very well done in Hiltz's character. I think that even when they kind of, I suppose, question what he's doing, they kind of go, we kind of understand you now. And he's like that. And he's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. We'll let you do it. Whereas, yeah, a probably British reason, we would overthink it and go, we need this months of planning. Heidi high.
I don't understand what's going on in chat. What is a Butlins? What is this?
Oh my god, a Butlins. Butlins.
I'm unfamiliar with the term as well.
Okay, Butlins is the only way. Well, it's different now, but I think it's probably from the 80s. It's a holiday camp for where you take your family and you normally take like kids under the age of like 10. So you would go and you will.
We would call it a resort, right?
No, but it's like, I think there's ones that are in like forests, and you have like like, I suppose you would call them like chalets. You have loads of chalets, and then there's a communal area where everybody goes in the evening. You have your meals, and you have like a show.
Oh, okay.
But you're in like a compound. Yeah, but that in like a really. I think I've got a Carry On film on the list, but like if you ever see like there's like Carry On kind of camping kind of thing, British ones where like everybody used to go to the same place and that. But Butlins is, yeah, you have like this thing called redcoats. Different to what redcoats are.
We know redcoats.
We don't have redcoats anymore.
But they're like the entertainment people.
Okay.
So you have like you have people who are like were on like X Factor, Britain's Got Talent,
like variety
and all that.
Show kind of thing.
Yeah, variety shows who like the one who came third will be doing like a 6-month tour on it, so you can do that. But it's literally I suppose it is very strange because you've got every county in England all meeting together, and then you've got all the kids just playing. So literally you would have somebody from Kent that's of course the southeast. The southeast with somebody in Yorkshire, a kid, and they were just like don't care, and they just run around mayhem. And that's kind of what Butlins is. So it's kind of like, and it's to the point where you get a lot of it is because it's so. Oh, there we go. This is the things. This is the it's literally the dirty dancing for the British.
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing. That kind of thing.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Now that kind of thing, and it gets to the point where every parent just wants to go.
This sounds like a terrible vacation.
So, yeah, it is. So, but it's very. It's now it's very cheap, cheap way to kind of get around. You know, you don't want to go abroad. You know, it's very very, very cheaper. But you have other ones. Oh, there you go. Look, there we go. It's Centre Parks. I was about to say, yeah. So you have one Centre Parks, it's the forest, and you got other ones. So they're all kind of thing. But if you take Dirty Dancing, but change the Dirty Dancing of kids running around, sneezing on each other, eating like literally putting Lego up their noses. That's
oh, that sounds like a nightmare. That sounds like a nightmare of a trip.
That'd be it. So lucky enough,
we would call those like summer resorts. Even it's not like resort in like fancy resorts, but we don't have them as, I don't know, they're not as popular. Yeah, probably in the 60s.
Typically here in terms of summer camps, it's a matter of send your kids away and enjoy your time alone back home as parents.
Yes.
Parents don't go along with them.
No, the only time I'm guessing
the British then.
Yeah, in the UK you would only do that if you're kind of a Boy Scout or Girl Guide. That is
here there's a lot of just like
get away. Yeah, we don't really just like you have your your summer camps, kind of things where Friday the 13th happens.
But because you guys have boarding schools and we don't. That's why we have very few.
But boarding schools is only I one person worked at boarding school. That's it. So not everybody does boarding schools. Like the schools is you have a very elite class probably does boarding schools now. Yeah, it's not very much a thing. To be honest.
We're losing you.
Okay, I don't know if that was my internet or if that was us losing stasis
James.
there.
Losing you.
Can you hear me?
It sounds very robotic.
You're lagging.
Yeah, now the picture's all distorted.
You're lagging, but if they can still hear us, so we've taken certainly a summer camp detour here in our conversation. We'll wait for James to get us back to get back to us, but here's where we are. Like as we said, the kind of the pairings have happened. The prisoners have found their the library, the canteen. They're looking around the camp. And they've immediately identified some really good places for the tunnels. This is also historically accurate. So one of the tunnels was under a stove, and I believe, I'm probably going to be wrong, I think that was Tom, because all of the effort was around Tom.
Yes.
But it was discovered, that was the tunnel that was historically discovered. It was under a stove, and it was handled exactly the way it was depicted in the movie. The ceramic floor under the stove was dug out. The reason why the stove was selected was because it was on a solid foundation, but the rest of the of that building was up on stilts. You could see straight under it, but you would see then the solid foundation in the middle. They dug or chipped through that solid foundation to start the tunnel. They did leave it lit at all times. They did use the wooden, post to shove it over exactly like they did. And they could replace it in a matter of seconds if the guards came around with who they called the ferrets. The other one that they showed really briefly, and I hope everyone paid attention when it was happening, was for Harry, it was a well. And they put a false bottom on the well. They cast or chipped out a bottom that they could, like a top pan that they could pour water in, put the grate back over, just like the well it was. But then they lifted it out. They had diverted the water, and they dug down through that down through that opening because it had a pipe under it. And again, they were going down through the pipe so that when the guards looked under the hut, they wouldn't see, anything happening in the gap because the tunneling was happening down through that pipe. And they again could do that very quickly. They could quickly replace the water. Like, who would think that they're tunneling under? No, there's water there. They're not tunneling there. And
Well, I think that's that
very,
they show that with Danny's character, doesn't he? Like,
Yeah.
he jumps out. He's a bit sweaty, a bit dirty. They get him out. I think there's like because like anybody's not seen it. There's these very subtle but very like I put a cap. I moved the bin lid and then gave it like I like give a little swirl in my hair. Like there's indications that you need to do something, so they don't make it obvious that thing. And then of course. I like that scene when he jumps into the shower, quickly goes like that, and they're like, "Why are you here?" I'm dirty. I need a shower. And he's like, "Why are you here?" "I'm the lifeguard."
Yeah.
Why are you like that? I think that's brilliant. And it's like that.
Gratuitous scene with Charles Bronson's shirt off right there.
Yeah. It's like,
And even that, again, the little jokes, the kind of casual nature of everybody creates such an interesting tone for this type of story that they're telling. It's like all the guys in the camp aren't really phased at the fact that they're in a prisoner of war camp. They're just kind of like essentially on their mission, and they're doing their best to kind of pass the time, and not pass the time so much as just make light of kind of the situation that they're in. And it creates a really interesting tone given the
I do like they show the sense quite well, especially me being ex-military, is how good the senior officers are, because you can tell everybody has a role. If you left one person, even if you think they're a dumbass, you need to give them a purpose, because if they're bored, the Germans might take them their side, like that. So everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a task. One, it's to stop boredom. It's to stop, that morale going down. Whatever your task is, I like the scenes where, like, I forgot the Welsh guy's name, but they have like a Welsh kind of, all the Welsh are singing like Christmas songs at one point. It's like blatantly, it's like in the middle of the summer, and they're doing that like for distraction. But everybody else has got their little bit to do. They're all tapping. Even like you've got the side cast that they really don't speak, but you can in the background the supporting cast are like showing them what things, but everybody else has got their little job, so it's good. But
Great point, Viper. The bird lecture was to bore the guards, to keep everyone together. They had, historically this happened. It was because during the day there were no structured activities. The allies, the prisoners, again, the ones that were in rank, were responsible for keeping the prisoners occupied, keeping the population doing something. And so it was a really great diversion. They would have these lectures, and that would keep everyone in bunches so that they could talk about the plan, because otherwise, the guards would see people just in the corner of a yard in bunches, and they'd break them up, and they didn't want them talking or scheming. So they would do these lectures. In the real Stalag Luft 3 was a theater, a full. Now, when I had read the book, I thought, oh, it's just kind of a shack with some benches. It's a full theater with theater seating and a stage and curtains and lights, just like a theater, for their own entertainment. And so in the real story, a lot of the planning occurred during rehearsals, because groups of men would be together rehearsing, and that's when they could be discussing the plans and checking on status. And the theater actually also became one of the best repositories for the sand, because the seats were angled up, just like theater seating today, and underneath there was nothing. And it was just, they were elevated seats, so there were big gaps under the back few rows, and that's where they were able to dispose of most of the sand, was in the theater, which they didn't show and they didn't include in this film, but that was another place where they could gather people together without arousing too much suspicion.
But I'd say, go back to the Vipers, kind of about the bird that we've missed. I love Blythe. I think this is one, like, there's Ives and Blythe, and we go later one thing. But I like when James Garner's character. I think I think when they first say he classes himself as Canadian, or does he class himself as American? I can't remember.
I think he says American. I think he several of them, most of them trained in Canada, so he might have referenced that.
Maybe, yeah. And I think he's the I can't. I'm literally just gonna. If you're RAF, I'm really do apply. There used to be the group that came before the Americans came in, didn't they, to volunteer to be in. I can't remember the unit that it was. That used to be the kind of RAF US kind of unit to fly. But I can't remember what his job was. I don't think they mention it because later on, he's not really a pilot. He can fly, but he's not really a pilot. Like, and them kind of aircraft. Like, he's not experienced enough. But I like how when they've got their own room, and it's quite small. They got only like everybody else is in like I suppose like bunk beds, but they've got their table, bunk beds, so they are senior officers. They've got their own little room, but he goes in there and he's like, why are you? Who are you? So he's like, you're really you're not a fight. Is obvious when you see him. You're not a fighting man. You don't look like one. You're like, what are you thinking? And you're very hello, how are you? And he's making his tea. We've gone through that scene, but I love that bit. And he's like, but why are you here? And he's like, then you find out, he went out for a jolly.
He was out on a recon flight.
Yeah, recon. Like in the English, we I don't know if you heard that. We go out on a jolly.
Yeah, well, I've heard.
You call it like a joyride type.
Yeah, thing. So he's gone out and like, I want to. Everybody else is going up. I want to go up, and then of course his aircraft gets shot down and gets captured, and he's really out of his element, and it's like that. But then you realize, what did you do? And I think he's like photography.
It was some type of photography.
Aerial, like photography. And then he's like, and then later on you go like, but what are you? Oh, I'm the forger. And he's like, no, what's your role here? Why are you here with me? And he's like, no, I'm the forger. And that's what you want to do. I'm the scrounger and you're the forger. It makes sense now. That's it. And then he goes, but what do you like? Oh, and then he's straight away, he's like, but what do you need? And he's like, a camera. I need a camera. I need a 35mm camera with this shutter lens and things like that. And it goes into then the ferret. And I love that. Like, there's that little nuisance, like we said about the duos, or like you get to know, but that kind of like freeway with him, the ferret, and a Blythe is like really, really nice. I like how they shot it. It's all condensed into this like one kind of like area. I think there's one other scene. It's very like in the same, could have been the next room, but it's kind of, I like that kind of things because you feel like you can like he does it well. James Garner's thing that he's connecting to his warden. Let's just call him what he things. It's like that, and then the ferret is like he even said, like we just said it about Boy Scouts. He used to be a Boy Scout, and he had like, yes, I was up for mine. I had 19 pins or whatever like I'm gonna call it. And he's like, well, I had 20.
Yeah.
I was working on my 20 and still they like made us go into the Hitler Youth, and he's like that. It's quite funny. And he's like, well, are you gonna stay? He's like, no, I've got to serve. Like, I'm gonna go back. I'm not. And when he finds out you're not really a soldier, I think that's when he goes, "You're my mark." That's it. Right. And then but then it gets onto the things like what things with the like it's with the the Red Cross things, and he opens up like the thing, and he does it on purpose. I love that, like the scene when like for the camera, like there's he's
everything out,
and he's just like, I need to find that one thing that like that. What is he? A coffee? Oh, do you want me to make coffee?
Coffee.
And he's like, yeah, that's a coffee. And he brings out chocolate bars, all these things, and then he purposely brings something out that he stole from the mess, and he shouldn't have. Everything else is luxury. But you can't have this one item. He's like, I need to tell him. And then he goes, oh, no, have the chocolate bar. Go and keep the chocolate bar. And then that's when he swipes his identification, like wallet. And it's just like that. But I love that. I love that whole scene. It's just like that because you can tell is like even the Germans, even though they are at the point. I'm not sure what year is this supposed to be set. Sandy will know.
1944.
1944.
Okay.
So it's kind of on the cusp of like, you know, the Germans think they're doing like they are not resource food wise as what the Americans can ship over.
Correct.
You know, when that. So when a big bar of chocolate is like, I've not seen probably one in like, he's probably not seen one in like a year. And he's like that. So when he's like, you can have it, you know, like it's nothing. And he like dismisses like it's a big thing, you know, you can have that. And then like the scene as well with the cigarettes and like that. Oh, do you want a cigarette? And I think that's just like that. He goes, oh, I'll have one for later. And he goes, oh, here, have a few more. You must have some bunkmates. And he just like really like, you know, yeah, kind of, you know, like I love that, like really, really good scene just to show like, yeah, you might be that, but we've got the resources, you know, like that. And like I probably was, as you said, like the Americans could really go, oh, you know, I can get tights for your girlfriend if you like, you know, nylon, easy, just get it shipped over. You know, it's like that kind of moment. Do you want a chocolate bar? Do you want some Lucky Stars probably at the time or whatever it was, you know, cigarette brands, and it's like that. And like it's quite good, but it shows very much. I love it when it carries on for a bit. That like they go then to the bird place, and then it is a very intelligent and supposed to be a very boring scene because Blythe in other ones when he goes, oh, there's a little scene, doesn't he? He goes, I can't remember what he said, like about something about birds, and then he goes, oh yeah, we hunt in the US as well, and he's like, oh no, I watched them.
Just watch
like very innocent, like oh no.
Which again kind of, and it shows the difference of Blythe between the other guys, because like or even just I think it comes before he asked the question of why you're here, because he's trying to kind of figure out what Blythe is good at, and he can't, and then he's finding out that so like not only are you not a man of war or in terms of a soldier, but like you also don't even hunt, you watch birds. Like he's kind of trying to paint a picture of exactly who Blythe is. And
because it's the thing I think he says, doesn't he? He goes, you watch birds? And he goes, yeah, bird watcher. And he goes, you must have them in the US. And he's like, we have a few. And he's like that, but they're like, and he's like, when he says like, but it's very weird to do. And then he's like, so what do you do after? And he goes, I draw them. And he's like that, but like his Blythe's like being of like, why are you thinking this is weird? This is like a normal thing for me.
And it's from a totally different kind of, you know, cut from a totally different cloth than pretty much everybody else involved in this heist. I mean,
but because it's I like those two characters because in any other setting, they probably would never meet. They would never meet. Well, you can do Blythe goes for walks in the countryside, has a sit down, has a picnic and things, and like probably what Henley described is probably more of like a, you know, East Coast kind of guy, likes going meeting the girl, smooth talking, gets what he wants, goes home, rallies up, and then like that they are two parallels, and it's not even like
it's an odd couple.
It is really odd, but they get on, and it's just there. I think later on, like their connection, I think they have the stronger connection. Yeah. And then like, you know,
the connection with the most part, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. They kind of like know they're slightly dependent on each other.
Yeah.
Even though like it's going down the line, like there's a more dependence for reasons, but they still draw each other in and play, you know, there's that kind of smartness to them both. Even though one of them is intelligent, impractical, and then one of them, he's a scoundrel. He like knows how to talk, how to manipulate people. You could see him as like probably back home he's a bit of a card shark, like that. You know, he can do
a bit of a sleazeball, but a likable one.
Yes, exactly.
You are someone who is it who said he's kind of a Harrison Ford character?
Yeah, to a degree.
Maybe it was in a different
The Scoundrel.
I think it was a different review that I listened to said he's kind
Mhm.
of the not Harrison Ford, kind of the Han Solo of the group.
Right.
It was in
That's
one
what I
of the
mean.
criticisms I had listened to.
Well,
I did want to quickly. Oh, go
mhm.
ahead, Jay.
No. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I was gonna say I want to just quickly rewind on that scene with the marmalade and the chocolate and the this and the
Yep.
that.
I actually did too, so that's perfect. You go first, and then I'll
Let
go
me tell you
after.
about the historical. This is one of those cases where I think a decision was made on the film because the truth was so ridiculous that no one would believe it. The true story, and there were many of the men in the camp. Remember, there's 600 or so in the camp, many of which are working toward this escape, but many of which are not involved in the digging or the day to day. Many of them are involved in trying to make friends with the guards, friends with the ferrets, create those relationships and those connections. And for the most part, they're regular guys. These are just regular German soldiers who don't want to be here. The real story of grabbing so much information from these German guards, the individuals who were the store masters, the quartermasters, so to say, who would gather all the extras out of the Red Cross boxes, and we're going to go into what was really in those Red Cross boxes in a minute, and making them available as contraband to the German soldiers. They created a scheme where the German soldiers had to sign for them. And in reality, the German soldiers signed documents when they would accept the bribe. And the way the prisoners were just so smooth talking, they said, "Oh, it's just for our own record. It's just for our own record, so we know what you like, so we know what you want to come back to." So now they've got something on those soldiers. They've got a little blackmail because they've got the soldiers. Hey, well, if you tell on us, I'm going to show the commandant
Right.
your signature. Now they've got signatures that they're going to put on those forged documents. It was so brilliant. And that really is what happened. That's not in the film. I was disappointed. But then I thought, maybe the filmmakers think no one would believe that.
Right.
But
Fair
truth is crazier. The truth is crazier than the fiction in so many aspects of this story. So Jay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So two things I really like about that scene with Henley and then the ferret is one, it really goes to show you how quickly and on the spot Henley can kind of concoct his ideas and why he's so good at what he does, which is gaining access to getting all these materials and things they need. Because like Stacey said, he starts off with the offering the cigarette, things like that. He knows, just making friends, making some kind of bond or some kind of just reach across the aisle to say, hey, you might be the guard, I might be the prisoner, but it doesn't have to be that kind of situation here. We can be a little friendly. So obviously he invites him to the room for the coffee. That's kind of his lead in. But then when he's pulling the items out, he specifically takes the chocolate out first, that he can offer him the chocolate, knowing that is something he can take. And also he's going to use that as because of the size of the chocolate, he knows I'm assuming this is the thought behind it. He knows in his mind, he can very easily fit the size of a German wallet or a German soldier's wallet behind that big chocolate bar. So it kind of then sets up. So here's chocolate first, get it into his hand, have him stick it into his waistcoat or waist belt, belt around his waist rather. And then at that point, once I take out this kind of trigger item that's going to get him to then react the way I want him to, which is panic and all that, and try to give me back the chocolate, then we can have this little tussle. I'll grab the wallet from him, hide it behind the chocolate, never see it. So the whole thing just kind of shows how brilliant James Garner's character really is in terms of what his role is, which is the scavenger, scrounger, whatever you want to call it. But it's not just a matter of finding things, collecting them, and bringing them back. He has to very creatively find ways to get things that are outside of his means. And the other part of which I'm assuming he's realizing here is not only am I going to take his wallet for the forged documents, we're going to tie that into somehow getting that camera, which seems like it would be an impossible thing for somebody like him to get from inside of a prison. But he's also kind of setting the seeds for, and then once he comes looking for this wallet, I'll use that as my way of getting the camera as well, which then we'll see in a little bit.
Yeah, but I like how he does that whole scene when the ferret comes back and he's like, "Oh, I must have lost it here," and he's like, and he's like, "Look, we can't look for it now. It'll look weird you being here. And
Yep.
he's really like overly friendly. He's like, look, we're mates. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll find
and then,
no big deal.
and then he sits down playing back to chess. And then he just, as he's about to leave, and I love
the way.
and his mannerisms, everything changes. He goes from laughing, joking with you, and then going, now I'm being serious.
Right.
And then I think it's like, oh, yeah,
right.
Because there's
and you
that
see
whole
that in
bit,
the ferret's face too as he's leaving.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, oh shit, this guy's not playing with me here. He's playing. He's been playing chess. I've been playing checkers, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because he knows if I go wrong, he like even says it like if you do anything wrong, might kind of rank you off to the Eastern Front, isn't it? That's it. And that like a death sentence. Yeah, you get.
He even says that in a very playful way, I believe, when he's like, oh, I think he's kind of talking to Blythe at that point, saying like, oh, it'll be off to the Eastern Front with him. So he's saying it in kind of a friendly way, but that's his way of being like, I've got the blackmail on you now. So
I know what you're kind of scared of. Right. I know this kind of thing. But that's it. Like there's little bits, like there's little bits you kind of find out of like why he's doing it, and then like you kind of get that mannerism and that character build up. That's it. And it's just and it's even to where Blythe, I think, like you watch it, he gives because he's got his back to it, he gives a little smirk. He's like, I know what you just done. Well done, sir. Well done, sir.
Blythe is almost portrayed a little bit to kind of be like a bit of a dope, or maybe just naive more than a dope. Almost like a book smarts versus street smarts type of thing, where he's very intelligent, and we know that obviously given his role and what he did, but he's also kind of dumb given that he kind of joyrided himself right into a prisoner of war camp. But on top of that, as compared to the rest of the guys in the group, he seems like he's almost a little oblivious, a little naive. But in that scene, you realize, no, he has a good idea of what's going on. He's no fool. And then one other thing I really liked about that kind of building that camaraderie with the soldier, and that for me, that was where it really kind of hit me that the German guards who are or soldiers that are guarding this camp don't have a ton of hostility for these prisoners. It's not. I don't know if that just has to do with the respect of soldiers versus soldiers type of thing, or just, I think Abe pointed it out somewhere earlier in the chat, how it did seem like even the guy who was the main, let's say Warden, for example, I think he has that conversation with who is it? Ramsey's character, where he's like, look, we're here to just kind of wait out the rest of the war. You guys act right. We act right. We'll wait out the rest of this war and we'll go from there. So it doesn't seem like there's a ton of hostility towards these soldiers. And I think that's a little bit of the Germans realizing that they may, now time frame, I might be wrong, but it seems like they kind of know a little bit, like their backs are up against the wall here. Like the end of the war is somewhat nigh in their opinion. And they are to some degree trying to almost maybe lay the groundwork of like, well, when, these guys if they do get rescued by their own, their own soldier, whether it be British or American soldiers, to be able to say like, well, look, we treated them all well. We were just following orders. Don't take it on us type of thing. There's a distinct level of friendliness, or at least lack of hostility, between the German guards of this camp and all the soldiers that are in it, as long as you don't try to escape.
I think that's probably not just this war. I think that's gone a lot, that they are officer class. They are different. I think if it was, just call it, if the grunts, they're going to get treated different. They're going to get treated different. They're not going to be the same. They're not going to have as a nicer place, let's say that, and they're not going to think, because, well, you're an officer. You have, I suppose, especially the British, you have a British way of doing things. Yes, you might have a disturbance, but you're still a gentleman. And I suppose that's still in that time. Yeah, you still were doing that. Whereas I suppose it mixed up with the other allies coming in. It kind of dirty deeds, like sight coming out and like that. So it's good to like have that. It's like you even get that where he's doing the dirt on the Germans, but the British still being, we've still got to be British. They're still doing it by the book. We have regulations and we need to do it by the book, gentlemen. Where the Americans in the movie are doing a little bit. What are they doing? And I like just going up. I think one of the best scenes. I love the scene is when why are they taking all the potatoes?
Yeah,
I love that. And I
no
love
idea.
that because you're like, and it's just like all the Brits are like, what do they like? It must be a reason. there must be. I got the thinking like there must be an escape plan. There must be something, and you can see the confusion of the Brits of like, but they're taking all the potatoes, but why? Like that, there must be a. I don't think the British at the time would have gone, let's make some moonshine.
Right.
Let's say that there wouldn't have been any need to it. And I love like the whole thing. And I think that carried like thing because I think that's near enough the next scene. It's like you have this weird bit like that you see him going and then like they're I think they're still like they're bringing it in and then they just hear this little bubble. And it's like they all like him. I forgot the other American guy's name.
Yeah, his is slipping my
the
mind
skinny
too.
guy.
Yeah, I don't remember him getting a nickname or anything.
No,
I
think
don't
he's
know because he couldn't. He wasn't wanted. He wasn't chosen for the escape.
No.
So,
Mhm.
I don't remember. But before that, before we get there, because we're not there yet, I do just want to share all this work that's going on at this time on 3 tunnels in real life took years. So this film is really condensing what happened very slowly and methodically over a period of years
Interesting.
into just what looks like a few months, right? Because we don't go through a winter. So we're talking about spring to, and they make a really big, okay. The whole potato thing is, I don't like the fact that it's around July 4th because he mentions the next moon is, the next new moon is the 7th, 8th, and 9th of July. The real escape happened in the very, very early spring, late winter of 1944. But this was years. In fact, they had to delay their initial plan because winter came. They were delayed when one of the tunnels was discovered, and then they had to wait out the winter because not just because it would be harder to dig, but because and they didn't have enough clothing, but because their footprints would have been seen in the snow and the camp was covered in snow. But as all this work is happening and everybody's got their job, I did want to mention the tailor. So you've got this guy in a prison camp making 250 full suits. It happened. It absolutely 100% happened. These gentlemen grabbed scraps of clothing, discarded uniforms, stole a bunch of stuff. Of course, turned blankets and bed sheets into suits that were passable. That is 100% true. And again, because it took years and years and years, well, years and years for this plan to come together, they not only had been able to scrounge the materials, but they were able to perfect how to, create a suit from nothing, how to create suitcases. Remember, they
I can do lapels, I can do 3-piece.
Yeah.
They made the buttons. Remember when he said, "What are you going to do about buttons?" And he grabbed a jar. So not only did they look for discarded buttons, but here's what they did.
They even go past and he's like, "Oh, we got the bed sheets, we got like something."
Yeah,
and then even then they go, and then he goes, "Oh, like Henley got me this," and there's like an actual fabric roll right there. He's like, "How did he get that?" He's like, "Yeah, but it plays onto his character because he's again what we said earlier. He's like,
I think
he told me not to ask." He's like, well, how did he get
another
that?
thing. It's because probably the truth was crazier than reality, so they had to create this Henley character to be grabbing all this stuff. That's probably why Henley exists, because it's not a real character. But the buttons, so here's what they would do when they did discover or pinch a button from a German uniform. They would press it into soap and make a mold. They took all of the tiny thin aluminum wrappings out of their cigarette packs and melt them into aluminum to make the buttons. You know how many cigarette packs it would take to make one? But they were collecting. They never threw away anything. They hoarded every scrap that could possibly be used for any reason whatsoever. And later we're going to talk about the papers and what Blythe is, creating these papers out of. You notice the lecture that he was teaching was learn about the bird and then sketch it. They weren't allowed to have sketch paper. Paper was a huge black market commodity. So they would be actually in reality trading that chocolate and those cigarettes for the German guards to bring them scraps of paper. That's
interesting.
everything else they could scrounge. but they needed paper was verboten, as were fountain pens. And they were also able to get some fountain pens, which is how Blythe and his crew, the real life crew, they were forging typeset. Okay, they were not forging handwritten documents. They were forging the letters as if they were written on typed on a typewriter. And it was because they were able to have magnifying glasses, and they were really good. And again, you see the one scene where someone made a mistake and missed an eagle on an insignia, and he ripped it up and was angry, and he said months, a month of work on this. That is how long it took. That's how long, because they were making documents that looked like they were typewritten. So that's just a little bit about some of those real life occurrences that didn't make the movie, but the reality is even more interesting, I think, than what was on film in some cases.
I think that's like movies, like when you have those ones, like we're just going to go for like the Battle of Britain. If you watch that movie, it feels like it's a couple of days. It wasn't in months. It's like that. So, like, I understand they need to go. Like, it would be like it's like, this is a long film. I think we both said, like, I forgot how long this movie is. Like, but you're looking, if they did all that, there's got to be some parts. It probably was in the original screenplay, certain aspects of it, and they had to kind of go, that's a 5-hour movie. Like, what are you doing?
Yes,
and it's like
absolutely.
that. And then,
And in fairness to
director role, they had to cut out. So,
and in fairness to the film, it does say right at the beginning, it kind of lets you know this is a true story. Majority of the details in this are as accurate as we could make it.
I say
and it is a condensed. Yeah, it's a condensed or compressed, one of the two. But they did mention, like, this. We did the character names are obviously all changed. They mention that, and then they say we did condense the time frame as well. So in fairness to it, it does kind of let you know that this, in order to fit the already pretty long runtime, especially for 1963, were many movies that long back in those days? Because that's long even for a movie by today's standards. And today we've gotten used to the kind of 2-hour, 2 hour and a half movie. But for a 2-hour, I think it was 52 minutes. I was shocked to find that for a movie so old. I didn't think it would be that long.
I'm trying to see how actually, what's the runtime? Yeah, 2 hours. 2 hours 52. So for that, you wouldn't. Hollywood wouldn't do that now. They would not do that now. And even though I think we've all said it didn't feel like it.
No, it doesn't.
It just
moves along very well.
Yeah, it moved. There's no bit you're like. There's no scene you go, that wasn't needed. It was drawn out. All moves nicely. Like, it all pandas along nicely. Let's say that.
Absolutely.
So can we go on to the moonshine?
Now you can go into the moonshine, but then I reserve the right to tell you the true story, which again might be more interesting than the potato run.
Before we get to the
okay, go.
No, I was gonna say, just before we get to the moonshine, do we have that first scene where you have Bartlett and Hiltz? I was gonna say Stiltz for a second. Hiltz discussing the plan of why he, how they don't know what's beyond the trees, or does that come after the?
I think
moonshine. I can't remember. Is that before or after? Because that's when he gives him the idea of, like, would it be essentially alluding to the idea of, like, would it be possible?
There isn't it? I think
I couldn't remember.
I can't remember, but
I don't think it really plays. We can go moonshine first. I don't think it really, makes a difference either way.
I love this scene.
Oh, you know what? It does come before it, because there is a part with what happens with Ives. That's what changes McQueen's opinion. In terms of going along with the plan. So before we get to the moonshine scene, there is a little bit of a meeting with Big X and Hiltz, where Bartlett is essentially alluding to the idea that he wants to ask Steve McQueen's character if he can, because essentially they know everything mapped out, like, in terms of the ways out of Germany. What they don't know is what's directly beyond the woods that they're trying to escape into. So and he's aware that Hiltz is about to attempt another escape. So he's kind of questioning him to see if he would be interested in, or willing, I guess, rather is probably the best term, to make that escape, get out there, scope out exactly what's beyond the woods, and then purposely get himself recaptured to be able to bring back the information. It's a reconnaissance mission, essentially. And obviously, Steve McQueen's character is like, absolutely not. Once I'm out of here, I'm out of here. I'm not coming back. Like, you guys are on your own at that point. And again, this goes to, Big X doesn't put an emphasis on like, no, we need you to do this. He simply alludes to asking to it. He might ask officially, I'm not sure, but he doesn't say, well, if you don't do it, we're going to rat you out, blah, blah, blah. Like there is still that respect of like, all right, well then if you get out, congratulations, that's on you. We want to see anybody get out anyway. So that works for us in terms of our common goal. But, we would love you to participate in the goal of saving 250 people instead of just yourself by way of getting out and figuring out the layout and then purposely getting recaptured. And that scene ends with Steve McQueen's character saying, nope, not happening. Like, I'm willing to help you out with tunnels and all that kind of stuff while I'm here. But once I'm out, I'm out. And then we move on to the potato scene.
And I love it. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. And even while they're like, when they were collecting the potatoes and you had the two I can't remember if it was X and whoever, that's just, I think it might've been X and McDonald's characters where they're like, and possibly Ramsey, I think as well. Or some combination of two of those three. They're like, what are they doing with these potatoes? Like what exactly is going on? This has to be part of an escape plan. And then you find the three American soldiers. It's really not part of the escape plan. They're creating a bunch of moonshine so they can do this lovely 4th of July celebration for the camp.
I find it funny because it's the colonials, we hate, down with the British and all that. And I think it's a great, because like Sandy probably knows what's the march they play.
It's Yankee Doodle, but
Yankee Doodle.
But I'm pulling up the actual painting. This is a painting in our national. I think it's in the National Portrait Gallery. It is called The Spirit of 76, and this is what they are portraying here. So this is the actual portrait. It's one of those famous portraits after the revolution. And it's not a real scene. It's not a real scene. It's just a portrait that was created after the American Revolution, but that's what they're trying to be, and that's why the one guy's got the bandage over his head. And
but I love it because it shows like the very much like, look, like you say, like it's this spanned over years. This is probably like, you know what, we've actually finally made some moonshine after probably failed attempts, and we've got like these. They blatantly probably didn't have, like, if they did do it, the barrels they have kind of like these massive glass like things. How would they ever do that? But I kind of like the scene is like the Brits are like, what the hell? And they start like marching along, and then they're like, get everybody, down with the British, and like that. And then they kind of go to Ramsey, and he's like, hello, sir. And he goes, your colonial friends have would like you to come and celebrate. And I love that because they go to the group captain and go, look, we're kind of celebrating us, but we're kind of taking the piss out of you at the same time.
And there's a good humor about it. They all get it, because it's three Americans amongst so many, British soldiers. So it creates for a nice little, again, another moment of camaraderie, but also another very light moment in terms of tone.
There's one bit that did make me very smirk, just a little bit. It was funny because it was what McDonald said when they said, and down with the British. And then McDonald just went, rightly so.
I didn't even catch that.
Or the Scottish guy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Very Scottish humor. And I love it because they all give the moonshine out, and everybody's like even when the three Americans take it, they're like, oh, that's wow. Good. And then you've got probably Ives and McDonald are just like the two Scots, and he takes the piss out of the Scot. Was like when I think it's McDonald, Ramsey, and Big X take it all at the same time, don't they? And then the two Brits, the Englishmen, are like, oh, Jesus, what was that? And then he's like, it's good. It's good. And he's like, well, if you don't mind, I'll go and get another one. He's like, that's good stuff. And it's like, gee, like that. And it's just that levity. It's like they know that would have happened. It would have been they would have been absolutely drunk in 2 minutes if that actually happened. That's like moonshine. That that strong. I was thinking, was that because Blythe took it, and that's what happened later? Like that was a known thing with moonshine, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. So,
It
but
was.
Well,
I just think the whole scene it gives that like they're all together in it. They're all
right.
having a laugh. They were like there was like they didn't need to show like Christmas or like even though they'd sing, but that kind of thing is like we're taking on your celebration, and there was probably different
And
like cultures there that they celebrated just because we're bored. But
yeah,
I
we
was
haven't had
like,
a celebration, right, for
yeah,
anything in a while. And
yeah,
again, it shows that camaraderie over everything, even over country in that point, because it's like, we're going to take part in your celebration too, Americans, which happens to be a celebration of breaking off from England and the control of
yeah.
England. So even with that kind of history behind what the celebration is, like you said, it could have been Christmas, it could have been anything they chose. But instead, especially given that apparently the real story took place in winter, but instead they kind of use that specific holiday to show that right now it's brotherhood, it's camaraderie, it's the common goal is over everything at this point.
But I think also for just a film, it is very clever because up to then, even though you have like Steve McQueen's character, he isn't the main character. I know, like he's not supposed to be. It's
Yeah,
Richard
no,
Attenborough.
he's
Like, but having that, you've just played to the Hollywood, like the Hollywood
Yeah.
crowd, because
right.
you've just gone into the American market. Doing that is a very clever director's thing to do because they said they could have done Christmas. They could have done Christmas, like they was like, and you've probably done the production value, but they went, oh, hold it, we're in the summer, we're shooting over this period of time. What can we do? How about if we did 4th of July?
Right.
These 3 Americans with these hundreds and hundreds of Brits, and then just kind of like 2 fingers up. It's brilliant. So,
and
good, but I hate the scene. I
oh,
absolutely
I love
hate
the
it.
scene as a thing, like
I
as
liked.
it is.
I agree. I liked it in terms of just in general. I did like the scene.
Yeah.
I thought it was put in a good bit of humor, a good bit of camaraderie. It was a lighthearted, light tone scene that was kind of a nice, a very nice tone in terms of your watching enjoyment. And then it's juxtaposed right up against 2 bad things happening, like bang, bang, right in a row. That kind of bring you back down to earth.
Yeah, I think before we get to that scene, but it's kind of like it brings you back. No, you're in a POW cab.
Right.
Sandy,
right.
go with the actual
So
history.
when I talk about just for a second, the actual history there. So the reason I don't like the scene is because I think it takes you out of the film. And it struck me as here's Hollywood putting its stamp on this film. You've got Yankee Doodle, and I do. I feel like it was any reason to celebrate. It was also a little bit of eat, be, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we may die.
Yep.
But again, the real story, and Dirk knows it. He read the book, so they didn't have potatoes. They didn't have potatoes. They were digging the raisins out of the food.
Oh, interesting.
The kits that were coming over from the Red Cross. There were raisins. There might have been some boxes of raisins. There were raisins baked into things. They were saving all the raisins, and they were fermenting the raisins, and they were drinking raisin wine. And in a couple of cases, and I do believe in the case of one of the tunnels that was discovered, it was because men were in the wrong huts. You had to return to your own hut at the end of the day when the lights were out, and men had been drinking, and one had to jump out a window to get back because he was drunk. He was too drunk to find his way back. He was caught, and it helped to eventually discover the escape. But it was raisin wine, and the writer of the book describes how god awful it was, but it was all they had. And yeah, that was their hooch. We would call moonshine hooch, 120 proof. But I like the scene of the ingenuity of them, creating it. I think this scene, there are 2 scenes that this would be a perfect movie if it weren't for those 2 scenes, and this is one of them. So then now let's kind of rewind and go back to, I think, Jay, you were saying where this is going next.
Yeah. So they're having this celebration, all that. And I think now, judging by what you had just mentioned, Sandy, about them being kind of drunk and being the way one of the tunnels was discovered, this is probably after having made the change to 4th of July, to, moonshine, to make it a little bit more of an American theme there. I would have to imagine they wanted to still try to tie in that the alcohol being the root, or not so much root as much as playing a role, because obviously it seems to be the root of how the tunnel was actually discovered, with the drunken soldiers making drunken prisoners making mistakes. But they wanted to kind of tie it seems like, it to a degree, with the alcohol also being in play when one of the tunnels was discovered, which was everybody's obviously outside celebrating. So the ferrets take it upon themselves to kind of do a search of the cabin. And then sure enough, they discover, after looking in the cabin at first, not noticing anything out of the ordinary, the actual ferret, the one who's called the ferret, he goes to pour himself a cup of tea, or a cup of, I guess, make a cup of tea. It's just the hot water at this moment. Drops it. It hits the ground. It starts to leak down into the tunnel. And at that point, he realizes, wait a minute, something's under here. So from there, he alerts the other guides. They come back and they discover the Tunnel Tom, which was the main one, which at that point, I think we glossed over this. Bartlett's character had decided to change the plan a little bit because it was taking a little bit too long to tunnel. And instead of focusing on all three tunnels, Tom, Dick, and Harry, he said focus everything on Tom, since it's the closest to being where he wanted to. And
that's accurate. That's
right.
historically accurate. When they lost time because of winter in real life, they decided they had to go full force on one. And they, shut down the others, but they could access them if they needed them. So that's historically correct.
Yep. And then in this scene, that's where they find it. They find Tom, and the vibe of the prisoners outside celebrating immediately changes, because they know soldiers are in there checking it out. And they're actually at first trying to play it cool. I think even maybe Bartlett says, or maybe it's Ramsey says, let's not act like it's a big deal that they're in there, because then they're going to know something's up. Let's just play it cool. They've done these searches before and found nothing.
I think it's Danny. Danny kind of goes over, doesn't he? He's like,
like they're like outside the wall.
No, we can't pay attention because they'll look harder, or something similar to
right.
That,
they'll essentially give it away that something's up and something specific's there that we don't want them to find. So they try to play cool, and then by chance the guy drops his cup. The water leaks down into the underneath the furnace that's in the room, and they find out the tunnel's there. So immediately they find the prisoners are aware of the fact, because they start calling the other guards over. The prisoners become aware of the fact that they found the tunnel, which is the main tunnel they've put all their efforts in. So at this point, they're all like deflated. The whole mood changes from the lively 4th of July celebration to, oh crap, our main tunnel that we've been working on was just found, which was always the plan as to why they had 3 in the first place. But because there was that adjustment of stop working on Dick and Harry, let's focus on Tom, it really makes everybody feel like crap, everything just went up in flames, which leads us to the second bad thing to happen there, which is at this point, and I think we missed this as well, Ives had gone into the cooler with Steve McQueen's character a couple times at this point, and the second or third time he goes in, where Steve goes in with his baseball glove and his baseball and is just doing the same thing as he always does in there, you see that Ives's character is really it's starting to take a toll on him. The isolation, the hopelessness, the amount of time he's been locked up, it's all taking a toll on him. And briefly, in some exchange between characters after that, it might be, oh, there goes my dog. It might be Ramsey or somebody, maybe Big X, says to Steve, he's like, Ives is about to crack, right? So you're starting to paint this picture that Ives's character is really slowly starting to lose, or maybe rapidly at this point, starting to lose his resolve, lose his faith in ever getting out of there. So right before they find the tunnel, him and I want to say it might have been Willie, the other tunnel king, they're doing a little dance. They're kind of crossing arms because he's trying to convince him, like, hey, cheer up. We're going to get out of here. We're working on the tunnel. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, it's him and McDonald, isn't it?
Maybe it's McDonald. I knew it was either McDonald.
He comes in, they start doing I don't know the Scottish dance name, but they start doing intertwine.
Yeah, the little kind of dance.
I'm a little giggle like that. Right. But I think even for that, you kind of get the insight of Ives when I can't remember it said, like, he's been there literally, I think they say like
3 years or something.
3 or 4 years. Like he's been literally he's been like one of the longest, like there. Like in incarceration in the POW, like moved around. So you kind of go, oh, that's like he tried to escape everyone, and now he gives his hope on we've got Tom, and Tom
Right.
is his plan is good. Well, like every other attempt I've still done, but we've still got Tom, and it's
Yep.
just it's and unfortunately, everybody just kind of mindsets just goes on to they found the tunnel. I think they do the siren. I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
And
Kurt runs on
everybody's
style.
attention goes that way, and then it breaks. He just
Yep.
breaks.
That's it. And it's just immediately after him finally getting his spirits lifted back up a little bit with some alcohol, the dancing, the promise of escape. And just as soon as he finally finds out about it, he finds out that that's shot. That's now completely shot. That idea is not going to work. They found that tunnel, and he just completely snaps. Or he doesn't snap in terms of like a psychotic way. He just his will breaks. His will entirely just snaps in half there. He's hopeless at this point. So he then walks up to that wire, which we talked about earlier, which was like essentially the do not cross, because there's then the wire, then about, I don't know, maybe 5-6 feet. And then the initial, the gate that holds, or the fence that holds them all in there. And that zone in between is kind of like your warning zone of like, they're going to tell you a few times, like, get back over the wire, get back over the wire. And if you don't, you will be, shot at. And so he knows that. He walks right up to it, hops onto the fence, and they essentially kind of take him out at that point. And so it's I thought that it made for really both of those two things happening so quickly. You didn't really see it coming because that scene starts off so light and so bright with the celebration, a little bit of humor between people from different countries, and then automatically it just takes an absolute spiral downwards, and it ends with Ives' character, getting shot and obviously dying on the fence.
But I think it's needed because it shows that no, you think you've got it on your terms. Yeah, you've managed to do this moonshine, you're having a bit of fun, but the Germans are still the boss of everything.
Right.
Like even to the point where Holtz rushes, tries to like the last moment, doesn't he? Where's he walking to? He's walking to that kind of blind spot they've already discovered, and he's after him, and he's like, yeah, it's too late, and they just open up. No morals. Like, you've gone for it. We're going to shoot you down.
Right.
Like, that's it.
And again, it seems to be the one rule of these German soldiers is that, like, you guys want to make your moonshine, you want to celebrate, do whatever. We're not going to stop it. Just don't try and escape, or else we're going to have to take the force that we take. Which, again, I think just sets up a very interesting dynamic between the level of, because, when you think historically of Germans at that time, you don't think that there is a ton of pleasantries or even just the level of respect that they have for anybody until and now watching this movie and learning from you guys discussing, I didn't realize that level of respect was there for soldier to soldier. So there is a lot of leeway that they give these prisoners of war to kind of try to, I know it's a weird way to say it, but try to enjoy your time there as best as you can within the realm of the situation you're put into. Just don't do this one thing, or else we'll have to take action. And in that scene, you see somebody try to do that one thing, which is escape, and they take their action.
Yep. Now you're also seeing, I think that this is where the tone of the movie changes, right? You kind of come to this, goofy, silly, optimistic tone, at a crescendo with the 4th of July celebration, and then it comes straight down with Ives and with the discovery of the other tunnel. And this is where, this situation has been studied historically as a lesson in leadership, and the real leader, Roger Bushell. And, you both said it earlier that the job of the leader was to keep the men focused, give them something to do, keep the morale up, keep it organized. This is where they swung in even more so into a very concerted, coordinated effort to get that one tunnel done. And so now they're on to Harry, and now it's going to be a 24/7 operation. And something that had happened in the real story that was not shown in the film was that a work crew had come on to the camp to fix the floodlights. And talk about, scroungers gathering little tiny bits of stuff. They grabbed a large spool of 800 feet of wire. Now, can you imagine what that was? It's like this huge spool. They were able to roll away in real life and hide 800 feet of wiring. So Harry, the tunnel, is now going to be lit. so that they were working on these little oil lamps, which were like, I guess, little sardine type cans filled with lard and then with a wick, to keep them going. But now they've actually got the tunnel strung with electric lights. Truly, that really did happen. You'll see it later in the bombing scene. What do you call it?
Air raid.
Air raid.
Air raid. Sorry, I couldn't think of it. The air raid scene, because the lights are on and then they go off. But as they're tunneling now, this is when you learn that Danny, your tunnel king, there have been too many cave-ins, and it is starting to impact him. So now you see a couple of cave-ins happen, and you see what happens. And then they even mention that they're going to need to shore up the dirt with the bed frames, and they're taking wood from everywhere. They're taking wood from the attics, from the bed frames, from whatever, and trying to shore up the tunnels. When a cave-in would happen, there was always two people in the tunnel, and the person behind would send a signal, grab the legs of the person in front, and they would both be pulled out rapidly. And they depicted that extremely well, exactly the same way that's described in the book, which was really cool. But for the men who were doing the digging over and over again, it was starting to get to them. And that also played a little bit into some decisions made later. When the final decisions are made about who gets to go, there were a handful of individuals who were told they couldn't go because of claustrophobia. One of them would have been the writer of the book, Paul Brickell. He was not chosen because of claustrophobia, but he doesn't complain about that decision. Actually, thankfully it caused us to have this really great book, because if he had been chosen, and heaven forbid, if he had been executed, we possibly would not have the story that we have today, which is, for history, that's a really good thing. But as they're tunneling faster, now they need a place for the dirt. In the real story, this is when they start to put it both under the back rows of the theater, and now they're filling up their Red Cross boxes with dirt. They're being slightly, I won't say reckless, but they're now filled with dirt and they're in plain sight. So now their thought is like, well, okay, gee, if the German wants to open a box, they're going to find dirt. But if they're in plain sight, they're probably less likely to open a box. So we're going to fill these boxes up with dirt. I mean, they just need places to put this sand, really.
And at this point, I think we might have skipped it. They had that idea of the the socks tied around a rope that would go into your pant legs and all that, and they would just
that was really early.
That was a little early. Yeah. So that, to that point, that had been the one way they had been doing it, and they were kind of dropping it into the gardens that they were doing, which would kind of mix it all up. But I don't remember them using or coming up with another method. I feel like that was the only method they really used in the movie. They didn't mention any others.
They called it being penguins, so that those who had the duty of dispersing the dirt were called the penguins, because they walked slightly funny and they dispersed the dirt by pulling the pins out of those bags in their trousers. And because the men, and they did show one scene with James Garner like drilling the troops and kicking up dust. They would do that. They would walk around the camp to get their, we would say today, to get your miles in or get your steps in. And they would do that, and they would kick up the dirt and but even that was starting to, cause suspicion. The contrast in the color of the topsoil and the sand couldn't have been more dramatic. It was bright white versus dark brown. So it was becoming noticeable, and they were really running out of ways to get rid of it.
Yeah, that whole I do like that, because even when they're doing it, when they're starting their little patch gardens, I suppose, and they're British, they like their flowers, not to like do garden this way. It's quite a good little scene.
And then it says, you can't eat the flowers. And then one other thing that's from that Ives death scene is that him dying there then triggers Hilt's character to say, okay, whatever you need, or tell me. He goes back to Bartlett's character, Big X, and says, let me know what it is that you need to see on the other side. essentially now finally agreeing that was the kind of catalyst to get him to agree.
But I think he said, "I'm going out tonight," isn't it? I'm going out.
Yeah,
tonight.
like, let me know what you need. I'm going out tonight, which gets him to essentially then go from his own personal attempts at escape to say, okay, I see the only way out is to work together here. So now he's deciding to jump in on the plan. He's going to now make his escape to do the reconnaissance and then come back to the camp purposefully in order to bring it back to them for this, great escape.
Yeah, because it shows him roll, goes, and then the next scene he's kind of captured, isn't he? I think they go straight into him. He's just coming back.
Yeah, he's kind of coming back.
He's got his shoes over. He's like hanging from the laces just over him, and and then they come in, and he just gives a Big X kind of just a nod, just like, I'm back. Yeah, it's all okay. And then he just heads off to the cooler. He knows where he's going without having to be told.
And I think somebody even says like, "Oh, I didn't think he'd be caught that fast." And then I think it's Big X, or maybe Ramsey's like, "Well, I don't think he was caught," or I don't think it was an accident that he was caught, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and then again, it's the baseball. Yep. Oh, you had a thing about the baseball. You didn't tell us, Sandy.
I think it's time to tell. I think it's time to talk about how some of these other devices were getting into the camp. So the escapees also had compasses. They had with fluorescent, indicators on the compass. They did have maps. They had many, many maps. They had transistor radios. How on earth did they get all of these things? Well, there was a wonderful little operation occurring with, I won't name the organization, but some of those organizations that were sending over care packages were actually being directed out of an operation called the Escape and Evasion Program of the United States military. It was housed at Fort Hunt, Virginia, which is literally 30 minutes from where I work. And I would have visited this week, but it was kind of a rainy, we had a lot of rain this week. So I'm going to go next week, and I'm going to visit where these care packages were put together in these fake charitable organizations that were called P.O. Box 1142. So any mail that went to or came from P.O. Box 1142 could possibly have a box that contained food, books, little tiny like handkerchiefs, board games, baseballs, all kinds of cool things that made their way through the inspections. But the inspections were not, I guess, very good, because inside the baseballs were the bits to put together the transistor radios. The baseball, the thread on the baseballs were color coded, and 4 different components were placed each in a different color coded baseball in a capsule. The capsules were then reassembled, as they could be in the prison camp. The baseballs were sewn back up, and they could play baseball with them if they wanted to. The United States manufacturers all across the country were engaged in making different bits and pieces for these special care packages that were going. In the handkerchief was sewn a tissue paper thin map. So you could get a handkerchief that actually had a map inside of it. It was pretty cool. Another company, and they were in segments. So they also had maps inserted. So think of a playing card. Think of how thin a playing card is. A playing card could be peeled, and inside the playing card was a bit of a map. And so they would know, they would all get their goodie bags, and they would put their maps together. The cartons of cigarettes, which were so important, inside the cigarettes were the crystals for the radio receivers and the components for compasses. So all of this was happening in Virginia and being shipped over. And this, the site of Fort Hunt is now a National Park Service property. I love my National Park Service, so I'm definitely going to visit. And there's an exhibit on Stalag Luft 3, and the operation was called MISX. And during that time, 80 to 120 packages each day were sent out of this camp to different POW camps. So wanted to share all that because how cool is that? You know,
That
you
is
think
Yeah, that is
like
very interesting.
they got some cool stuff. So some of the American and other allied officers, they have also been trained at this camp, this Fort Hunt in the escape and evasion camp. A select number of them were trained, and then they would make sure that as they dispersed their way through their service, they would share this information. And some of them, of course, were captured on purpose so that they could get into the camps and share this information. So awesome, cool stuff. Real history.
Very interesting.
That is, I never knew that, so that's cool. I was gonna say, that's like cool. Like that's one thing. I want to pick up a book now. I want to pick up a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense because as you're
Yeah.
watching the movie and you're seeing some of the things, and we didn't even get to see compasses or radios or anything like that, but even some of the stuff we do see them get their hands on, part of me was wondering, like, how realistic exactly is it? Like, how were they able? Were they really able to get all these kind of things in this kind of situation? So to find the history behind it and feel that not only is it accurate, but they're actually able to get even more than that is pretty wild to try to wrap your head around.
I said, like, it could be like this whole this movie if they. I think I said it like if they did like a modern take, not modern take as we know it now. This could be like a really like a MASH series.
Could be a mini series for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh yeah, look at a Band of Brothers, something like that. You could absolutely do this in that kind of style.
So
right, we're getting close to the night of the escape.
We've got Holt's just come back. He's given the nod. He's back in the cooler. He's calms out and kind of. I don't think he kind of gives his plan. They don't tell him about a plan. It's just indicated that he's got the information, doesn't he?
Right.
He's done what
he was. Yep.
He's got. Yeah. He goes to McDonald. Kind of comes out and they go, yeah, we're waiting for you, and just kind of. It's an indication. I've got what you need, but they don't really say what's out there. I don't think it's needed. It's just like, yeah, I've got what you need.
Right.
And then the next is I suppose it's the countdown. It's kind of everything being put in place. Everybody's now kind of, what's your time limits? What we got? What have we doing? And it's got really interesting.
Yeah, because I think next after, so then we, like Cindy said, we see the cave, the tunnel kind of cave in on Danny's character, where we start to find out then that he's got claustrophobia issues. So I think next we see him attempt to make an escape through the fence because he's kind of like had enough of tunnels, at which point Willie, the other tunnel king, kind of chases out after him and convinces him, like, no, if you do that, like, you're going to die. There's no way you're making it out that way. Come back to the cabin. I'll be there with you when we go down in this tunnel. Again, that kind of buddy system /
I'm your guy. Yep, got your back.
It's like, I got your back. We're gonna go through here. I'll make sure you get through there. Don't worry about the claustrophobia, like all that. And then from there, I believe we see that scene that actually Sandy mentioned earlier, which was the eagle being left off of the forged document, where Blythe's character. One crumples it up, gets all, aggravated at the time wasted on that document that's now incorrect. But then we discover that Blythe's character is actually losing his vision and losing it pretty rapidly at that. So from there, we see an interaction. Well, first, I thought this was a scene to me that showed me that Blythe, again, isn't as naive or kind of a bit of a dope as he's made out to be, and some, at least compared to guys like Henley and such, and Big X
he's
himself.
Eccentric. I'm gonna say he's eccentric.
I think it's a good way to put it. And we find out that he's just as smart too. He can come up with his own plan. So he's you see him in the room, in their room, the one that he shares with Henley. He's putting his back up against the door and he's taking these 5 steps and he's bending down on the ground. And like at that point, I'm like, I have no idea what he's doing. But it's actually a really clever little thing that he's doing, because shortly after that, Henley is now in the room with him. And in comes Big X to let him know that he's no longer going to be part of this escape, because his, rapid blindness is a bit of a liability. And, it's something where Big X is kind of making the decision for him versus allowing him to make the decision based off, his own comfort level with being blind and trying to pull this off. And Henley rightfully kind of steps in and says, like, shouldn't that be his call, not yours? To where Big X is again showing his leadership, where he's like, no, like, this has to be mine. It's the sake of everybody, not just his own benefit. But then we find out that the whole thing Blythe was doing with that back to the door was he had counted out the 5 steps and placed a pen on the ground. And that was his way of trying to trick Big X's character into thinking that he could see, where he's like, oh, I can see, I can see that pen over the ground over there. That means I'm fine. I'll be able to do it. So he walks over, he picks up the pen because he knows where it is. And then on the trip back, Big X challenges him like, all right, well, now walk back to the door. And he sticks his leg out. Obviously, Blythe can't see it, so he trips, and that's kind of the point where he's like, see, like, you're too blind to make this trip on us. You couldn't see make this trip with us. At which point we see the other half of this odd couple step up and say, like, no, he's going to come, and he's going to come with me. Which,
but I like it because it's the like, even when Henley kind of steps in and goes, look, I don't care what you say. I'm going to take care of him.
Mhm.
I will look after him. He won't leave my side. We can do this together.
Yep.
And then Big X kind of Rich Attenborough kind of like, then yeah, all down to you. And then once he leaves, he's like, but he's right. Like Blythe is like, but he's right. Like, I shouldn't go. He's like that. And then he's like, you're going. Kind of like, I don't care. You're my mate. Kind of like that.
That's it. We're brothers.
And it's probably that kind of thing is what they don't really show in the movie. It's like they've probably been there years. Just them. That's that. Like, he's my buddy. He's my mate. He's my brother now. I'm not leaving him behind. So it's kind of again that camaraderie of like, no, we're doing it together, or we don't do it at all.
Right.
And it's kind of nice to see that. Like, even though, you've just now made it literally 100% harder than it would be, like having somebody who's like, because he even gives the thing is like, I can see, he gets the pin, doesn't he? I can see up to here to do my work, but here, and he goes, like, he's only like what, a meter away, I think, and he's like, you're just a blur. You're just a blur,
right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to no pun. It's hard to see that scene.
Yeah.
Like, oh come on, it's gonna get get both free. Like every time you get that, you're like, everyone you just want them to escape.
Yeah, you want all the main characters. We're
want that. You really want that. The ending. I suppose the best way to put it is that Hollywood ending. That nice
the Hollywood ending.
Everybody, it's
sure.
all sunshine and rainbows, and everybody's out.
Everybody gets back, and everybody's happy. Everybody's meets up with their their wife, girlfriend, whatever, loved ones back home. Yeah, and then we get kind of the realization is it's going to be difficult, guys. It's like that, so. Yeah,
and you even understand it's not like Bartlett comes off as not a bad guy, because he's obviously a good guy in this movie, but it comes off like he's being a little bit rough, but at the same time you understand where he's coming from, because it's like you said, yes, you being blind makes this now 100% harder than it was already, and it's not like it's an easy task to begin with. So you understand where he's coming from. And then you love to see it kind of his ruling be undercut by somebody stepping up and saying, well, no, I'll take care of him. I'll make sure he gets out. In which case he obliges with that and says, yeah, okay. I mean, if you're going to do it, that's up to you. You can take care of it. And it was just a nice scene to see that camaraderie on the back of, I mean, I think it's like almost one after the other, where you see Willie do the same similar thing, show of support for Danny's character in terms of his claustrophobia and things like that. It's just that tight-knit group of men who have gone through something very difficult together and are trying to pull off something that's also equally as difficult, banding together and saying, like, no, we do this together, or it doesn't go down at all.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is where once the decision is made to go, they have to go, because the documents that they all have to be dated. And this is a really important point. And it actually plays in the real life story to many of them getting captured. But as you see them all line up and they've made their decision, and in real life, they had planned for 200 and some, I think 140 now. I have to go back to the book. And what they did was certain individuals had to go. um, because of the skills they had, and others were drawn randomly.
Mhm.
Um, and then others were excluded because of claustrophobia or other things. And so the men were given numbers. The most dangerous part of the beginning of the operation was to have them all in the same building because they weren't allowed to be in other buildings after lights out. They had to be back in their own um, hut. And
Mhm.
so the way the mechanics of getting them all into that hut were kind of complicated, even more so than their normal evasion of the guards on prior occasions. But they did, they got everyone into the hut. Um, and as the dig out was beginning, so the shaft up and out was not completed, obviously, for fear of the Germans were fond of running trucks all over the camp to try to dislodge or cave in tunnels. So they would run heavy trucks all around the outside, the inside of the camp. And so they couldn't dig um, to the top of the ground, close to the ground, because for fear that it was going to be caved in by a truck or otherwise disturbed. So they had to put planks part of the way up from the escape route up. And they had gotten wet because it had been rainy, and so the wood expanded. So the night of the escape, early on when they're trying to free those wooden planks, they could not get them free, and it took hours. They were hours behind when the operation started. When the evacuation started, they were hours behind. And even before the first men exited, the coordinators, they were called marshals, the marshals had to start telling people who had been selected that they couldn't go. So they were
Mhm.
lopping off, okay, the last 100 or the last, 240 to 250, you can't go. 230 to 240, we're not going to make it. 200 to 230, you're not going to make it. And as time kept ticking, fewer and fewer men were going to be able to get out of the tunnel. Finally, those boards were able to be wrested out, and that's when, as they slowly and timidly escape, they realize they were short. That
Mhm.
tunnel was 10 meters short, so 30 feet short, and they were not in the trees where they should have been. But this is where, and there was no hilts in the real life story, but this is where, the individuals at the front of the tunnel very quickly figured out that same exact process of tying the string to the top of the ladder, tying the string. There was not a guard hut, but some kind of a hut just beyond the trees. And they decided, heck, we're going to try. Hopefully there's no one there. The little hut was empty, and one or two of them stayed in the hut so they could tug on the rope when the German guards had been looking the other way. Uh, but strangely enough, as the as the prisoners started, coming up and out, there was a lot of commotion in the tunnel because now they're all backing up, and the ones at the
Mhm.
back don't understand why the ones at the front haven't gone out yet. So now there's even more tension going on. And while there was not a Danny character in the book, and there wasn't a particular person who kind of had a little freak out, I think that was very well portrayed in the film with Danny, having his real huge attack of claustrophobia, and how,
Right.
you could tell they had, knowing knowing his situation, that's probably why he was way up at the front to get him in and get him out. But now he's
Mhm.
got all the people behind him and all the people in front of him, and now he's just got to get out. Now he works his way back and works his way back out of the tunnel because um, he can't take it anymore. And there's no air. That was the other issue at that part of the tunnel. That air pump that you had seen a few times in the film, they were just waiting for the cool air to come down, and that's how in the real life story, when they knew they had broken through, because the cold air rushed in through the
Mhm.
tunnel, and then they knew they were through. But also by that time, the number of men that they knew they could get out of the tunnel was less than half of what they had planned.
Which I have to imagine in real life would have been such a if there is a big X, I'm assuming there was a big X character person in real life. it's got to be just such a deflating and horrible feeling knowing that, you know, what you promised to so many men is only going to be something that maybe half of them get, if even that, given that the circumstances are now that you are 20 to 30 feet short of where you intended to be.
Yep. So the prisoners who are now not going had to quickly hide their clothes, their papers, and everything down the other tunnels. You know, if the openings had, you know, behind walls, behind floorboards, they had to hurry up and hide everything. And they were kind of planning to do that. They hadn't started yet. And then a German guard had come very close to the escape hole and did discover them. There were other men in the tunnel that didn't make it out. 76 of them did in real life. They made it out and ran. The German guards jumped down into the tunnel from the top, pushed the prisoners back in, out through Harry, going out the other way. And just like in the film, then all heck broke loose. And when all heck broke loose, you know, sirens going off, guards running everywhere, very quickly, the prisoners were going in all different directions, unlike in the film where you saw the next day almost all of them at the same train station. That did not happen. They were all over the place. They were all running in different directions because they couldn't be together. Some were caught right away. Most were caught a little ways out in the towns, in the cities. And the one you know, there wasn't a situation where someone answered back in English. That didn't happen. But some of the paperwork, probably because of the delay, you heard them mention that they had missed a train and they were getting on the next train. Because of the delay, several of them missed trains, missed connections. The paperwork then was out of date. The paperwork was questionable. And eventually, all but 3 of the 76 were captured.
Wow. No kidding.
So that's real life. So going back to the film, a little different.
Yeah.
Well,
but they make it. Yeah, this is where it gets a bit more. Some of it's a bit elaborate. I'm guessing they've taken a bit of a, like, there is well, of course, let's go from the escape, and they get broken. They kind of break up, and of course a couple of them go a bit to the train station. We know that part, but then you've got was it the what do you call it, disorganizer? No, distractor.
The disruptor.
Yeah, he steals a bike and he's just cycling along. You have that. Then we have Steve McQueen's gone out on his own, and he is kind of does a trap for a bike. We've got that, and then we've got Danny and Willie who kind of make it cross country, and then they get a rowing boat.
They get a boat.
And then you've got Henley and Blythe's character that kind of go through. I think they get to the station. They're on the train. He realizes we got to get off. They're gonna notice you're blind, and this isn't right. So they jump. I'm guessing they go cross country, and then randomly, I always thought this was a bit weird. They get to an airfield, and then that's where you kind of realize he isn't a pilot, because he can fly, but he only can fly. He says, like, "Oh, there's a training one there. I can fly that." And it's like a very like a one-seater, like very tight Cessna kind of aircraft like that. And they kind of like, the main bit of that is they kind of go up and we're flying. And it's just like, okay, like it's a very weird.
They're surprised.
I'm like, yeah, would that actually have happened? I very much doubt it, but I'm guessing it's for dramatic effect, very much so. But then you've got the main ones, McDonald, Big X, and all that, kind of on the thing, and McCallan, I forgot his name,
the dispersal.
Ashley Pitt, that's it. He's there. They're all on the things, and they kind of get off. they go. I think they get to a train and they come back. Like things.
Yeah, they're
and
at
then
another station, I
like
think.
another
Mhm.
station. They get
Mhm.
there and they kind of give a good gap, and then he notices I'm guessing he's supposed to be a Gestapo. I'm guessing on
I
the
think
main one.
he's in a brown coat. So
Yeah,
I'm
he's
thinking the
like,
brown is the signal there.
yeah, and he's Badley. He's like, hey, Badley, and he's
Well,
like that. Got that
he was the
something.
same German who dropped Bartlett off
Was it the
at
same
the
exactly?
Yes.
The
Yep, he's
same
the
one, yeah.
same German who
With the
dropped him
dark
off at the
hair.
camp in the first place and kind of gave the rundown of him being one of the worst in terms of a prisoner who was always trying to escape.
Yeah, and this is kind of the first. I think this is like the first indication it's not going to go right for him. You don't see, of course, all the 70 odd that you see, only a small bunch, I suppose. But you have like they're all kind of in the same kind of area, and of course to realize that they're in the shit. Let's just call it. He kind of just body tackles him, doesn't he? Manages to
Mhm.
get him like he's
I
a
think he
weapon off
wants
him.
to get Bartlett away.
Yeah,
I think he knows. I
yeah,
think he's sacrificing himself
Yeah, that's
yeah.
how I took it.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
help
Yeah,
Bartlett
he
get
knows
away.
he's more important
Right.
than me, and he does that. He kind of goes for a run, and yeah, he's instantly kind of shot. He stumbles like a couple of yards, and then he just
Mhm.
falls dead, and it's like that. And he like, oh, that's it. And then it's kind of the follow on straight away. The kind of everything go kind of the plan dismantles quite quickly.
Mhm.
For
At this point,
everyone.
you feel like they might actually get away with it, and all the ones who you have seen to this point get on bikes or planes or trains or whatever it may be, rowboats, you're starting to feel like, oh, okay, these guys are going to get away with it, and then very quickly you realize, oh crap, no, these they're not going to get away with it, not in the way we think, at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you got then it flips. It does this bit in film sense, not how we're going to discuss it, because it flips. Like you get bump that it very flips. So if we concentrate on one element, I think that might be where, because in the film you get
Yeah.
oh that scene.
Mhm.
It crosses over because it kind of tries to show like they're all in different places, but they've all got their own little escape routes that they've either been told what to do, where to go, or what to try and do. Like it's obvious. Like I think there's a scene where they say what some of us will try and go by boat, go by sea, or
Mhm.
go by train, trucks, and all that, because the Welsh a guy, he kind of gets it like very easily captured, and like he goes into like um a truck. He flags him
Mhm.
down, hitchhikes it, and then the truck driver takes him to the Germans like
Right.
that, and then
And I
these
think I'm pretty sure I might have missed it, but I thought because of the package he was holding when he gets into the truck, he's actually the one who kind of ruins the escape through the tunnel plan, because when he comes up through the tunnel, he falls with this big package, falls on top of it, and that's what brings the guard out towards the
yeah,
tunnel exit.
Yeah.
So I
In the
believe
yes,
film,
that's
yeah.
the same character. Yes, in the film, I
yeah,
believe he's the same character who then ends up hopping in that truck. I noticed the package when he was hopping into the
yeah.
truck.
It's like
Which
a big
part of me kind of like, well,
truck,
that's what
and
you
like
get
yeah,
for
backwards.
ruining it for everybody else.
Yeah, but yeah,
And the
there's
oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, and then the comment on the again, falling. It's the person who had chastised others for quickly responding in English for falling
Yep,
for it. He's
McDonald.
the
Yep,
one who fell for it on
I've done it. Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
the bus,
Oh yeah,
and
that's right. Because there's that little scene where they're kind
yeah,
of testing out their papers and the little bits of German that they're going to be able to use to respond. Because not all these guys speak multiple languages. And I want to say it's the guy who gets on the bicycle and gets away on the bike and then hops the train. He's
I
the
think
one
it
who,
is.
in that scene with McDonald, as he's kind of practicing, gets fooled where he's speaking in German, and all of a sudden McDonald says something in English, or like, your German's
Yeah,
pretty
I think,
good, and he immediately responds in English, says, "Oh,
Thank you.
thanks," and he's
yeah.
like,
Thanks,
"Oh,
mate.
how could you possibly fall for that? Like,
Don't fall for
don't
that.
let that slip you up."
Mm.
And then we find out that McDonald would be slipped up by that same mistake, in
Yeah.
his escape with Bartlett.
Yeah, then
And
that whole scene, you've got like a little bit of a instigate, like it's quite clever. Like you've got Richard Attenborough's character does a rooftop escape,
Mhm.
gets over, kind of like brings himself together. He gets kind of, you think he's done for.
Acts like he belongs there.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I belong here.
and then a vehicle turns up. The German officers come out, and they like, are you English? And he like answers back like in German, kind of like, what? You think I'm English? And he's like, his German's so good. They kind of go, oh, they'd like just let him go straight away, and then they carry on. And then he kind of casually, I'm okay. I've just got to play it calm, go things. He picks up, like, gets a paper, gets to the corner, tries to lean against the wall, and then it's you just hear Berkeley. And then he's just instantly in his face. You're like, I've heard that before, like that voice. And then it's just like, yes, and then he's just kind of like screwed. He's like, put your arms up like that, and he's just got no chance. And he knows it's done. He's like kind of done for that's kind of thing. So he goes. We don't see him for a bit, and we're going on for that in a minute. But then you're kind of left with Danny, Willie, who they kind of left. They kind of now. You see another clip. They're kind of going down a river. Let's just call it, and they're just roaming along like no care in the world. And then you get Headley and Blythe, who are in the plane. That goes back to them, and they're like, "Oh, we're away." Kind of, I think we got 24 minutes or something, or 27 minutes, and we're
that range. We'll be in
I see the Alps, and I got Switzerland there, and it's all like, "Oh, this is great," like that. And then there's a engine kind of failure. They're like, he doesn't know what it is. It isn't because they're out of gas. And that, like, it just drops drastically, and it's kind of, oh, damn it. Like that. Like, we have other scenes with McQueen. We go on to that one, but I think this one is a bit more of a like, a bit of a heartbreaker. So he got no, like, he kind of crash lands, and I love the bit. He protects him. He sticks out his arm. He's like that, and he just literally just throws out like, I'm gonna protect you. And then he gets out, and he's like, instantly he goes like, I love Henley. Like, he does the right thing, but it ends up being the wrong thing, because his thing is like, well, if anybody's following us and sees an aircraft coming, they're going to come from the location that I've just come from. So he runs and he just goes, you go that way, and he instantly goes out, and there's like a dip over the hill, and then what Henley can't see, but we see through, I suppose, from the view, but of course he can't see, is there's trucks, motorbikes. The Germans have come from the other way, and Blythe is heading blind towards them. And then I think he has a realization, like, oh, there's something there, and he turns, and we just bang, shot, dead. That, well, not straight away, he gets shot through the chest. And then, of course, Henley turns, runs up. They are still, I think they fire a couple of, maybe miss, and he's got his arm, don't shoot. And then he just puts him in his arms. And I like that realism, because he's got the blood. He can't do anything. And he's like, Blythe is like kind of like, thank you for trying. It's a very like innocent kind of, as we said, he's he's understanding, I'm done for. He knows he's done. And then like Henley, and I liked it because it shows the character of Henley, because I'm guessing if you go like he when he looks up, he's angry, he's like pissed off, and he's just surrounded, they've all got the weapons pointed and like he realizes, you got that moment when he's like, you can see, I think it's like great acting. I think you can see that moment. He just puffs his chest and then goes straight back down. You just watch it, like if you ever watch like that scene again, he just like, I need to react to what's just happened to my friend, and then he realizes, if I do, I'm dead.
Yeah,
it's like that.
Yeah, it's a hopeless situation.
Yeah. So of course he goes, and then I suppose the next main character, and it's probably this is the most iconic sequence. I know there's breaks in it, and we said there's breaks in this, is why then Steve McQueen probably became the headliner of the movie.
I said I hated 2 scenes in this movie. Go ahead, keep going.
Well, you've got the thing. So, like, we know from an earlier scene, he did a trap to get a German. Lucky enough, it was German motorcyclist. And then he's changed into the uniform, and then he has this weird dash. And I'm guessing it's supposed to be over time, and they don't really show that. But he heads towards Switzerland from wherever, but he does it like in speed. So I would love to know Jay's take on it, because I've seen it and it's a cool scene. But let's have Jay's take.
So I would put it the same way. It is to a degree kind of cool in terms of, because he's ripping it up on the motorcycle, going off road, up these hills, all this stuff. It becomes a little frustrating because he kind of like goes back and forth, almost like a game of pickle. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with pickle, but it's like in baseball.
Yep.
I know Sandy will be.
Somebody
I'm not
off
sure.
base, right? They're caught
I'm not sure if Stasis
catch the runner.
is familiar with it, but that's essentially what it is. Like when you're caught between 2 bases, and, in the first baseman, the second baseman, whatever bases it is, they kind of just like, as you're trying to go back and forth, they're closing in on you and throwing the ball back to each other to kind of cut you off no matter which way you go. So it's a little bit of a game of pickle that he's playing, which I don't know. To me, it seemed a little silly. I feel like he could have tried to get away instead of doing some of that pickle stuff. So I think as Stasis was putting it, I could see this being like a very defining scene for some in terms of his kind of action role in this, where it's the first time you see him really doing something outside of just kind of being another one of the prisoners. The rest of the guys are all kind of walking, taking trains, riding a bicycle at most, whereas he's all of a sudden kind of becomes the action star who's just ripping up and down these hills and jumping over the first set, because it was like again another cool looking visual of him realizing he's between some barbed wire and some other barricade, so he kind of like does a little loop around, catches some speed, grabs a little air to go over the barricade, but then realizes he's still stuck to the barbed wire fence and all that. I didn't think it made a ton of sense. I thought it seemed a little bit much like they were kind of just looking to put him on a bike at some point in this. Like they set it up in the beginning and they really wanted to get him on a bike so they could show off his skills on that bike. So it felt a little misplaced. I didn't hate it, but I also thought, it kind of stood out to me as like, this seems like they kind of did it just to do it.
Yeah, it's
there were no prisoners at all in the escape on motorbikes. Period. This did not happen. I agree with Jay 100%. It just felt like this was to show off Steve McQueen. He was going to be the box office draw. It wasn't. I did not feel it was disrespectful to the history. I just feel like it. Yeah, I just felt like it was not.
It's there for the race. It's right. There.
It felt like Hollywood putting
because they set it up early with the conversation with Ives.
Yep.
That he has he rides bikes and he raced bikes in the past, so they wanted that scene. Yeah, it's a cool scene. It's cool. Could it have been different? 100%, because it is literally a bit dumb. Even to the point where he goes races into the town, and then somebody goes to him, come like in German, come here, come here, and then like you could have just ignored them, right? Like, I didn't hear you. I'm on a motorbike, on a large motorbike, and he goes around,
keep going,
and then keep going, and then the guy then he kicks him, and then it kind of goes things, but then it's got I suppose the music kicks in, and then they've played into the iconicness of the jump. It's a famous jump over the first. He tries to jump over the thing, and that scene everybody kind of knows. And then he kind of again, it's cat and mouse. There, he got nowhere to go. We're all pinning him down. It's a bit dumb. And then he goes for and he's not going to make the jump. I think it's his last hope if he can get through. They shoot. I'm guessing they hit the bike, or they just he just slides off, and he goes into the fence, doesn't he? He gets tangled up in the barbed wire, and that's kind of it. So, but yeah, and it is a Triumph bike. Well, that's handy. Yeah,
It is, and it's been pointed out
Oh,
on several
interesting.
sites that that particular bike hadn't been made until like 1958 or 59. So it was not of the
The model,
period,
yeah.
not
No,
historically accurate, but
yeah.
yeah, I
And
guess it looked cool.
I've seen it in real life. It's
The real
literally
one.
where I am. The actual, yeah, the guy, yeah, he's put it in the Triumph Museum. So there's a
Oh,
real
it would
small
have to
museum,
be
and that's it. Next to also the
the world's fastest
um
Indian.
no, it's a Triumph that in the Mission Impossible movie,
Oh,
the one,
okay.
and there's a James Bond one there as well. No things
Yeah.
like, and it's literally a guy who's a millionaire who's gone, I'm buying all these Triumph bikes out of every movie,
Oh, but no
and he's
Indian.
literally,
Okay.
yeah, and he thinks so. No, they're just it's a Triumph factory, and that's it. So it's
Oh,
quite cool
wow.
to see.
Put that on my list when I visit. Go to the
Yeah,
Triumph. It's on my long list of things
yeah.
to
There's
do.
a very nice coffee shop next to it as
Oh, nice. All right. I'm
well.
in. I'm there
It's
for the
very small though.
history.
It's very small, but you can go around the factory. It's like that. But they have all the really like famous like racing bikes, like from when the Triumph were
Oh,
big
neat.
bikes.
All
That's it.
right.
So,
I seriously am putting that on my
yeah,
list
yeah,
to check
yeah,
that
it's
out.
all good.
To check that.
Yeah,
Well, you notice then, as you're mentioning, the ending is honing in on our main characters, right? It's honing in on um, Danny and Willie have rode off, and the prisoners who have been captured are now in a dungeon. And I'm going to call it a dungeon, right? They're looking like this is
near
not.
enough is yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
this is not a normal.
it's like the was it oh,
It's like the Dirty
um
Dozen, the bottom
no
of the
no no
castle.
yeah, or what's it? Last of the Crusades, kind of like that kind
Oh
of
yeah, yeah,
German
yeah.
scene. They kind of they've got like a an Austrian castle somewhere, and they've gone into the bottom of it, and there's a Gestapo. Like, yeah, we're going to use the old dungeons from the past, and they've kind of
And that
been put
protected
into
them
like
from
a
bombing. Yeah.
yeah, or an old war wine cellar. They've just been all kept in, haven't they? Like that. It's dark, dingy, a little bit like wet, and like yeah, it's not
Yeah,
very nice.
that was their protection
Mm,
from the bombing, but
mm.
this is different. They all know this is different. And what we know, as readers from history, and there's even a comment, I think, among the German officers that specifically Hitler wants them executed.
Mm.
And in the historical account, the real account is that because of this escape had diverted so many German assets. And we find out later that 1.5 million German troops had been diverted just for these escapees. I can't even imagine, but that's what the documentation says. 1.5 million German troops had been, exercised over 3 days to capture these escapees. Um, he was angry. He was also, the realization that this war is going to end and you are not on the right side of history or on the right side of the war is hitting the Germans hard, and they want to make a point.
Mhm.
And Hitler says execute them all. Goering and others, I think, convince him, well, this is against the Geneva Convention and this is against everything. And what about our German prisoners on the other side? And we want to make sure that however this war ends, we want to make sure that they are treated well, and our families, etc., are treated well. So Hitler says half plus one. I want more than half executed. So 76 had escaped, 73 are now captured. I think at this point, not 73, but eventually 73 are captured. And so half, okay, well, half is, 38, 36, or whatever. I don't do math, 37, 38. Um, and that's not what happens. So 50 are executed, but not in the way that the movie is going to portray now. So the movie is going to portray all of them in in trucks, and you'll see. I do love the way this was shot, though, because it
Yeah.
parallels the trucks coming into the camp at the beginning. At the
Mm.
beginning of the camp, all of the trucks are at the beginning of the film. All of the trucks are in a line, and they're all headed toward the new camp. There's a together. At the end, all of the trucks are in a line. There's like 4 trucks in a line, and you see at the intersection One goes to the left, one goes to the right, and one goes forward, because they're going to be executed in different places. In real life, they were executed when they were found, or where they were found, or in small groups out of where they were being detained. They were not all bunched together and executed. They were largely executed when, similar to what was portrayed in the movie, they would be on a long ride. The driver would say, I'm pulling over now. You can get out and stretch your legs or relieve yourself or whatever you have to do. And as the prisoners jumped out, then they were executed. The message that came back to the camp, the commandant at the time, von Luger in the film, is actually von Lindiner in real life. He was disturbed. This isn't how we play. And you notice in the film they did depict in one scene where the Gestapo and the SS personnel gave the sign, and he hesitated to give the sign, and they looked at him, and they said it again, and he reluctantly raised his hand to salute.
Oh
And
yes.
yeah, you could
Yeah.
tell there was difference. He was disturbed. And when he did inform the remainder of the prisoners who were left at the camp that their comrades had been captured, he did read a specific statement that said, I have been instructed by my by the authorities to tell you that 50 of your comrades have been shot. And while there was no real Ramsey. Again, I think Ramsey and Bartlett together make Robert Bushell, who was executed, so he wouldn't have still been at the camp. But those at the camp then raised the question, what do you mean they've been shot? How many wounded? And that did happen in real life. And the commandant hesitated again to answer, and then finally he said there were none wounded. So they knew that this was execution. This wasn't, hey, they were trying to run away, because the story was they were shot fleeing arrest. But thank you, Dirk. Massey was the senior British officer who was left at the camp. That they were executed. And from that point forward, and the war was going to end not too long from then, those in the camp, including Paul Brickell, who wrote the book, began to document everything. In their minds, they were going to find out and help hold accountable those who had done this to their friends.
I think just on that, like you look at the scene with what it's the first, when they get captured and they stop the truck and they go, you can do your legs. That scene with McDonald and Bartley is great because it's a very small scene, but it's the first time together they call themselves James and Roger to each other.
I didn't notice that.
The first time they called James and Roger, they're just having like that. Yeah, we're kind of things, and it's kind of like that they've still got that little bit of hope, like that. Yeah, we've just like I think Dirt said it's we broke up the resources. We've done our job. We didn't have to escape. We just put a stop in the clog, the wheels, of the German machine, working kind of like that. Is it 1.5 million? That is, how much resources that would have taken up to find them. So they did their job. They didn't escape, but they did their job. And even to the point, he says, it's what I like to do. I'm never he knows until the war ends. That's when he thinks that's when he's going to go home. But this is, I like kind of like this, messing things up for the Germans. And then it's just that instant moment. They're like on a little mound, aren't they? You don't really see the rest of anybody else. And then they just hear the loading of the machine gun. And it's just that. And I just that scene, and it's just a backdrop. And I think it's shot really well because it's just the realization of they're not afraid. They're not scared. They just know it's going to happen. And you just see that across both of their faces is, okay, our time is done. And I think it's a very good scene, and it's very morbid, but it's a very well shot scene because, as we said, most of that movie is a bit of levity, a bit of like messing things up, but that it gets you down to the realization of like, oh, the main characters are now they're gone. Like the people that you're rooted for, that you think they're the main star. You've already had McQueen go into the he's not he's gone. He's gonna get whatever, and then you got all the other ones. That's it. And then I like the kind of next scene because you got that, the things how many got injured 50, and then it switches like a very moment of things back to Danny and Willie still rowing along. Rowing along. And I like that, and it's good. So you get there, and then they go on that, and then you get a very good scene of like I still can't remember his actual things like the French bar.
Haynes. Isn't it Haynes? He's at a resistance bar. He doesn't know he's at a resistance bar.
And it's like the telephone rings.
Yeah.
And isn't great. And he's like,
that was great.
What's going on? And then they dive down. And it's again, they just play that little bit of levity. And then, of course, the resistance come over, shoot these 3 German officers. And then he's like, they just pour some like cognac or something out.
Cheers.
And they're like, hey, cheers. And he's like, resistance. And he's like, English. And goes, now bloody Australian. And he's like that. And he's like, can you get me to Spain? And it's just brilliant. I like that whole little segment. And then you realize, yes, there might have been a ridiculous, when you say that was the 3, I'm guessing in possibly in real life. The 3. And it's like, but I don't know what ship they went on to. I'm guessing they either managed to, if that was real life, they managed to kind of speak to the ship captain and say, look, let's work in them doing the coal or whatever, or they just became just hiding on the ship. And then what's the name went to Spain. And it's just like kind of thing that you got, yes, 3 of them got out, but then you realize
he made it out of this.
And then you kind of get the realization, well, 50 died. And then like the rest of them went back, and then of course one of the kind of ending kind of scene is I can't remember if it's McQueen comes back first, or it's when the Gestapo comes in, he's
stripped of his command, and
he comes in,
right,
and then he comes and then they've got another officer there, and then he comes out, and then they go to salute him, don't they, as he walks out, and then he interrupts. Do not salute him. He's been stripped of his command. And then, of course, McQueen, a horse, gets he just stands up to him, and they're both things is like, you will see. I believe you will see Berlin before I do. It's from a scene that we saw earlier. He I think it's a very famous thing. I want to. Before the war ends, I want to see Berlin from the sky and from the ground, isn't it? Something like that. So it's that kind of thing. You will see it before me. And then he goes off and he looks at Ramsey, who's there, and he's been reading off the names, of course, of the dead. And then, of course, McQueen comes in, and I like that because he just goes again, like the end bit. He just, I'm going to the cooler. I know where I've got to go. It's going like that. I've got no thing. And then, of course, he's an American mate with the thing. Just throws him the pitcher's glove. I'm guessing, is it pitcher's glove? I don't know what it was, but you would know better. And
it's just a fielder's glove. Yeah,
fielder's glove. And then did again, and that's kind of thing. But it's like things like I think it's very good how it ends, because it ends on how you begin the movie. Like with Holtz, like how it ends, it's just like, that repetition, and we're going to do it again. If we get the opportunity,
we're
digging
quit.
the holes. We're not going to give up. It's like this, exactly the same thing. And then I think it's a very nice thing at the end. I don't know the version you said. It just said to the 50, dedicated to the 50, and it's just,
and that's the dedication in the book. So the first page of the book is for the 50, and so the names of I was hoping they would read the real names, and they didn't. They read the fictitious names, but the names of the 3 who escaped. So the 2 that are depicted by Danny and Willie on the rowboat, that's not exactly how it happened. They did make their way to a small town where they could get transport to a port, and then there were what do you call it? Not resistance, but collaborators from Sweden. So what they were looking for was a Swedish steamship, because as soon as they knew if they got on a Swedish steamship, they'd be okay to get to Sweden. And in the memoir of Jens Mueller, so I read The Great Escape, and I also read two of the memoirs. Jens Mueller goes really in depth as to those days after, and how they kind of had to make their way around this town, and they had to go to a pub, and they had to stay in a hotel in this time. They're in a German town, which would be today Poland, I think, and make their way to this port, and then make their way to the Swedish steamship, and they have to go to a brothel, and the whole scheme was really complex. You have to talk to this guy first, then talk to this other guy, then you'll get on the ship. And they did, and they had to trust a lot of people, and they made their way onto the steamship and made their way to freedom. And then the third was Bram van der Stock, who was Dutch, and he was helped by the French resistance, but not in the way depicted in the film. But there was a lot of walking for him. He did walk through, I guess, Germany, through France to get to Spain. So he essentially walked his way all the way to Spain, which was, kind of depicted in the film. But those three were the three who did make their way back to England, were debriefed, were pumped for all the information that they had, and and then went off and continued to serve, all three of them, until the end of the war.
No kidding.
They did. The interesting parallel, though, and I had to look this up because I was like, how many survived the sinking of the Hood? It was 3. I just thought that was kind of interesting that 2 major incidents from World War II, involving the British, had 3 of many.
Yeah.
Only 3 survived. Couple of other things. So going back to von Luger, who is von Lindener, many of the guards and officials of that particular camp immediately after the escape were also executed. So now it's like, it's kind of frantic, right? It feels like that in real life, the Germans are getting frantic, and so they're making examples of everyone. I mentioned that 800 feet of wire that was used to create the lights in the tunnels. The Germans tracked down the workmen that allowed the 800 feet of wire to go missing and executed them. They executed many of the guards. And I'm guessing that the mole that was depicted by, by Werner, maybe he was depicted as the person who helped them, but then also discovered the trap under the stove. Maybe because thought he really needed to do something to get in the very good graces, and not be suspected of helping out. And it did come to pass that anyone who was even remotely suspected of helping out on any of these escapes, whether it was purposeful or through their negligence, were either imprisoned for a very long time or executed. I think von Lindenauer was just imprisoned. I actually don't think he was executed.
Very interesting.
There's also an account. I'm sorry, one more thing. There's also an account of all the stuff that the Germans did a complete inventory of all the stuff that was pilfered and used in these tunnels. And there are long, long lists of the thousands of bedboards that were taken apart and dismantled to make the shoring, the wooden carts and the wheels and the tracks. And when you look at it on paper, of these hundreds and thousands of items, hundreds of thousands of nails, hundreds of hammers that all just went missing. No one was keeping track of this stuff. No one was keeping track of this stuff. It's really pretty amazing. But it also showed that some of these camps, Germans didn't have the manpower to really effectively oversee the prisoners. And that's why the scene in the very beginning of the movie where von Luger um, is talking to Ramsey and or Bartlett and kind of saying, "Can you just make my life a little easier? Can you please try to convince your folks not to escape and not to reference a terrible sitcom in the United States called Hogan's Heroes, which was created after this film. The Colonel Clink, he convinces himself every day, no one's ever escaped from my camp. He has to keep telling himself that because it's happening all day long. But all he can do is just put up his hands and say, no one's ever escaped from my camp. He literally has to convince himself of that. I thought about that just a tiny bit during that scene because he's just saying, hey, just help me out, because they don't have the manpower. And that was true in real life. They did not have oversight of this stuff. And what they were able to really accomplish is amazing and is memorialized in a museum at the site. And actually, the Grand Tour, I think Clarkson and Hammond visited the site, but you can visit the site of Stalag Luft 3 and you can see memorialized in kind of a memorial in the ground where each of the tunnels were. And that is on my list. If I ever get to that part of what is now Poland, that is definitely on my list of places to visit.
Excellent. So I'm going to go for final four. We go into weird things and cast about this movie. So because there are some little, I think Sandy knows the couple, but I just about the cast because I think that's going to be hard. But let's go, and I'm going to have to go to you, Jay, first, just because me and Sandy have watched this multiple times. You out of 10, I'm going to ask you, and would you recommend it? And what was your overall opinion? Because it's 1963. I'm going to hand it over to you.
So, honestly, I think I give it a solid 8. I thought it was, in terms of just a film, I thought it was very well written, very well acted. There didn't seem to be things that they overlooked in terms of the escape itself and things not really adding up. There was kind of an answer for everything. The acting was surprisingly really good. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I know this was a very legendary cast with some great actors in it for their time. I've just noticed that when I watch some older films, the style of acting is just very, very different. And that's nothing against, those movies. It's just the time that they were made from. But I thought the acting was really good. I thought James Garner and Richard Attenborough both stood out as really, really good in their roles in this movie. So I'll give it a solid 8. I don't think it was like I said to start the show, I don't think it was as dated as I thought it was going to be. I didn't see much difference in the way it was filmed or made than I did something like Saturday Night Fever, which was a good chunk of years after it. So the fact that it still holds up and was still in, like, sometimes when it comes to older movies that I'm watching now for the first time, I can be a little bit picky on them just because, again, long time ago, the cameras were different. The sound recording equipment was all different. This one held up pretty well against the test of time for me. So I give it an 8, and I would say definitely recommend. I'm very happy this one came up and I got a chance to actually watch it, because it's one that probably would have continued to slip by me just because I was entirely unaware of it, to be honest with you. I'm familiar with Steve McQueen in terms of his iconic kind of status as an actor, but he's not somebody who I've seen. I think this might have been the first Steve McQueen movie I've ever seen, to be honest with you. And he had died, I think, in the early 80s, if not 1980 itself. So, there's some movies, when I looked up like James Garner, for example, his filmography, there were some movies that he was in that I've seen that I was like, oh yeah, that was him. He was just so much older when those movies came out that I didn't recognize him. So Steve McQueen, it was the first movie I think I've seen with him, and I very much enjoyed it. Big recommend for me.
And you know what?
Yeah, that was fantastic. The way it switches tone, sometimes back and forth in certain parts of the movie, like that 4th of July scene. And sometimes just in general, like Sandy put it well, I think that 4th of July scene is a big shift in the general tone where you start to lose a lot more of that lightheartedness and kind of veer off more towards the serious nature of it all. But even then, in that second half of the movie, you still get a little bit of some slight bits of humor and things like that pop in. So the way the tone switches back and forth, I thought was very well done. It didn't feel like it was like tonal whiplash. It felt like it all fit and flowed together very nicely. Just a well-made movie from screenwriting to acting to directing. I really enjoyed it.
And Sandy, I know
I had already told James and Jay my struggle, so I'll say it really quickly here, because I did vacillate back and forth on how I felt about this film just over the last few days. I had seen the film many times in my life and loved it as a fun, interesting historical film. Having read the book, The Great Escape, and then the two memoirs, the Jens Mueller and Bram van der Stok memoir, I got angry at this film. I was angry because these accounts were very emotional, the endings, and now obviously, now I'm not speaking about the lightheartedness because that's part of it. Part of being in the camp was to keep everyone's morale up. What I was angry about was the Americanization, and almost to the level of U571, that reaction that I had. I really had that reaction. But upon thinking about it, and also, hearing your perspective and watching some, criticism and reading some online criticism about it, I think I've come back to really appreciating the film. I was going to drop my rating. My rating had initially been an 8, and I was going to drop it to a 7 because of the historical inaccuracies. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it 2 ratings. I'm going to give it an 8 for the film, the standalone film that it is, and I'm going to give it a C- for historical accuracy. So I'm going to use a letter scale for historical accuracy, because if I combine the two, that makes me really not like the film. I have to separate it in my head. I really do. But I absolutely love it. Watch it anytime it's on. And I'm so glad that the Wheel of Film blessed us with this one. And because I'm between, James, an RAF veteran, someone who is British and has a, this film has a different place in your hearts. It's a Christmas film for you all, against Jay, who's never seen it. And I absolutely love hearing your opinion. So James, where are you going to come down? What's your final verdict on this?
Straight away, I have this on my IMDb score, and it's an 8. It hasn't changed. 8 out of 10, definitely. 100% an 8 out of 10. It's firm. It's solid. It's like, it's one of those, like, I now this is where I'm going to go into like the cast and the crew and a little bit of the background history, because it is, I find this a very British movie that is like not it was unpurposely done, overtaken by great American actors who weren't established, because at the time, we got to go back, this was supposed to be a Richard Attenborough movie. Now everybody would agree, if you said The Great Escape, it's Steve McQueen's movie.
Yeah.
And it literally is. You watch it, you're like, he overtakes it. He's brilliant in it. You know how they kind of think, but he's not the main star. They made him the main star after he did Hell is for Heroes. That was a year before, but he was filming this, so they upped him on the Billboard scale just because that did so well. Now, if you look at like the ones I've already said, like James Garner, he was known for Maverick, the TV show,
and then eventually the Rockford Files.
Yeah. But Steve McQueen and Charles Bronson together were in The Magnificent Seven.
Yep,
that's it. Charles Bronson. If I said Charles Bronson now, everybody's like, yeah, I've heard of him. But before that, they weren't really, that kind of international star. No. Richard Attenborough was a big star in Britain. He's done a lot of international work, so he should have been the main star, but he got overshadowed by Steve McQueen. Now you take it back to the scene that Sandy a bit over with the 4th of July. When did it get released in America?
Oh, I'm sure. Is this
4th
the blockbuster?
July.
Blockbuster weekend, as they call it here. Yeah,
4th of July. So it makes kind of sense. They realized what they probably had with McQueen and kind of like shifted it. And I would wonder
a
if
little
they
different.
kind of shifted it in how they edited it or how they kind of perceived it as making those kind of like repetition scenes that are very iconic with the cooler and everybody loves them is because they knew they had something with McQueen. That's it. Because after this, he like, he like his repertoire of
Cool
films
guy. Yep.
yeah, like, so you got that. So it is I think that like Hollywood probably looked at it and went, "Oh, it's going to be a British, war movie," because it's filmed like that. Even with, I said, like an American director, it is filmed like a very British war movie. Like
It is.
Jay said, it's got that, the British comedy, that kind of thing. You don't need to tell us; it's just there. That's kind of funny, and it's kind of like, so it's very British, and like I say, like, it's always on. You can guarantee this is like, for some, I don't know why, but like since the 80s, this like, it's always on. Like coming up to Christmas time, Great Escape's on. It'd be like Boxing Day, The Great Escape is on. Why? I don't know. But in Britain, for some reason, it's always on. But I kind of love it. Now there are some like other weird facts. Now the weird fact, and I think I'm gonna say this one. There's a weird fact with two of the co-stars in this, and it's David McCallum and Charles Bronson. Now, has anybody heard this weird fact? Now, so David is on set, they're like that with Charles, like that, and he's David's wife at the time, Jill. I have to look at Jill Ireland. Now, if this is actually, I think he's actually said it later on, that apparently she turned up on set. Charles Bronson took a look at her, walked up to him straight up and went, "I'm going to marry your wife."
Oh, God.
They've been together, think about this, 10 years. Yeah. So apparently Charles Bronson, every time David was doing his bits of scene, he was chatting up his wife like that.
Oh,
and
Lord.
literally, he did what he said. He literally married
I
her.
had no idea.
And literally, apparently went up, and it was but apparently that he was pissed off at the time, but later on, literally, they kind of like realized, like, yeah, you were made for each other, like that, and yeah, that was Charles Bronson's wife, like that. Literally, just went up the guy, "I'm going to marry your wife," like that.
No
That's it.
idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So you look at Jill Ireland, yeah, yeah. So she, it's like, so she married him. Was it like they got divorced for in 1967, and she married Charles Bronson in 68.
Oh my God.
So
That's not the fun fact that I thought you were going to share. So
wasn't it? So that's kind of thing. Yeah, really weird. But yeah, apparently, he literally came out like that because I can't remember, he played it was an interview when he was doing, like, somebody asked him because he was the doctor in
Man from
CSI.
Oh.
No, CSI. Yeah, he was like CSI New York, isn't it? He was in, I think, or I can't remember.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
he's
knew
one
he
of
was
the
in the Man from Uncle.
Yeah. Go on then, and
Solo.
then go on then. Your fun fact. Fun fact.
Well, my fun fact kind of will repeat itself if other of these war movies come up in the wheel of film. But many of these actors who portray servicemen in war movies also served in the wars, and so I'll start with Charles Bronson since he was just mentioned, but he did serve in World War II and was in active combat. He served with honor and earned a number of military honors. Steve McQueen was in the military. He did not serve in active combat, but served for a few years in the military. James Garner was in the Korean War and did see combat. Sir Richard Attenborough served in World War II and saw combat. And then Donald Pleasance, our lovely Mr. Blythe, he was a POW in Stalag Luft 1 in World War II. And so a lot of his experience being a prisoner of war in the war he was portraying was used in the development and the the staging and the settings and everything in the development of this film. The actor who played Commandant von Luger was Hannes Mesimer. He was a German soldier in World War II and was held in a POW camp in Russia. And many others in the background, extras, etc., were either former soldiers on either side of the war, either an ally or an Axis. And several of those also had been prisoners of war. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Paul Brickhill, back to the author of the book, though, as I mentioned, he also wrote the Dam Busters, and he died in 1991, and did have an opportunity to interact and give his experiences to the actors who portrayed different people. Again, there are none that are directly, you can't, some of them you can do maybe a one for one, and maybe he had the influence on making some of these characters like an amalgam of multiple people that he knew and that he got through the war with, and that he had written about. His devotion and those others who did survive in, again, trying to track down and find those who committed the murders, was a lifelong pursuit. It didn't happen quickly, just like the tunneling out didn't happen quickly. And then some of those who were in the film, some of those actors in the film, also learned and became scholars on the subject, and were experts on the escape of Stalag Luft 3.
Interesting.
So I'm just going to go segue now, because literally this is the fun bit after we do that. So somebody's saying, is Dam Busters on your list? Now, you know what I'm going to do now? I don't remember if Dam Busters is on our list.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Let me
But
see.
there is something that may tell you, and we might get lucky. So next on our list, oh my
It is
God,
on
mate.
the list. It's
I've
number.
do Lally again.
It's number 192. It is on the list.
So yeah, there you go. So next is Halloween. But until we do Halloween, let me just get up. The most fun part is what maybe Sandy needs to read a lot of the books again. We don't know.
I enjoyed it. I was only going to read the Great Escape, which was a pretty hefty book. I did the audiobook, by the way. Oh gosh. And another one where I am going to buy the book now. So even the ones that I purchased on audiobook, I like this one so much. But that just led me to want to read the memoirs. So I was totally fine with that. I did want to make a quick comment about I watched the version on Amazon Prime. I'm going to look for the 4K version. I'm hoping there's a 4K version. But can anyone tell me, in the versions that you watched, was the Nazi flag screened out of any of your versions? Because I really feel like, so if you're looking at a scene of the camp, did you see flags?
Yes.
There were no. So I noticed it right away that it felt like in some of the scenes, the top of the screen was cut off.
No, they had the Air Force Luftwaffe flag, the army flags we saw, the Imperial Nazi flag. But not. Yeah, they weren't blurred out. They were visible in my version.
It was literally cut off the top, because I noticed like there's a flagpole there, and you would get like a tiny shred of a flag, and then I thought the scene looked strange. So it could just be me, but I think they were cut out in this Amazon Prime version. But I'm definitely gonna get the DVD.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
This film also. Guess what this film's rated in the United States right now? You're not gonna believe it. This film is rated R.
Really?
Not for the content of the film, not because of the war, not because of violence. According to Amazon Prime, it's rated R for glorifying smoking, cigarettes, and tobacco products.
Wow.
You're going to be kidding me.
Because they trade cigarettes. So when I talk about even, in our live streaming community about things for the US audience, you have to avoid, like, don't allow people to smoke online or talk about it. Yep. In the United States, this movie is an R. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That is a bit stupid.
We do not condone smoking crack. We do not do that here, but it was used as currency during all the way back to the Civil War. It was used as currency.
Yeah. But so let's get back to the wheel of spin. So next we've got Halloween. That's our next one. So we're going. But are you ready? So this will be the one after Halloween.
This has to be a J because this last one was you and me. So I think this is going to be one of J's. We're going to be watching.
Hold it. Is there a Halloween book though?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I did not know that.
There you go. Okay. All right. Everybody. 1, 2, 3.
What is it?
Ooh,
Casino.
Okay.
Nice. I think this was one of mine. I think we might have just hit one of mine, Sandy. Good call.
Another gangster type. Awesome.
Yep.
Oh, it's such a good film.
I know what I watched that like a week ago.
Perfect. You already had of the game.
There you go. Oh, good movie. Good.
And
movie.
I already know it is a book. I already know.
That's going to be a fun one.
That is a long film. That is another long film. That is. There you go. It's a Casino.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's we kind of got a lot of gangster movies. So it seems like we kind of got that. So yes. Oh, nice.
Yep. Yeah. It is a book by Nicholas Pileggi, and it is about the story of Lefty Rosenthal, who is the character, what is his name? Ace Rothstein, who is portrayed by Robert De Niro, but the real name was Lefty Rosenthal. So yeah, I'll be reading that one after I get through the Halloween book.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there we go. Awesome. That's a good one. That is actually a good one. I like that. It's a Casino. There we go. It's still not a black and white movie. I will get it one day. I'm gonna get a black and white movie one day. That's it. So I'm guessing Jay, you've seen it definitely. So we've all seen it. So yeah. So it's another one. We're gonna give. When was that? That's got to be. Is that our
1996 or 1995?
Is that
it was after Goodfellas. So yeah, 95 sounds about right.
So is that our
No Country was
is the most modern.
Yep. Yeah, that was 08, I want to say. So that's our most recent.
Cool.
Yep.
So yeah. So it's swapping and changing. War now, horror, back to gangster.
Oh yeah.
That's it. We've not still got any romantic comedies, any comedies at all.
No martial arts yet.
Not yet. Not there.
No westerns. That's my black hole. I think I've seen Tombstone, and I haven't seen many westerns at all.
Spaghetti westerns on there. Spaghetti westerns are on there. Don't
they
worry.
are. I know. And then your foreign films. We're gonna catch.
Yeah, well, we've not got any Civil War ones on there yet. American.
No, we gotta get those, and we've got
no.
My old Hollywood, my old Joan Crawford and Betty Davis films that I put on.
Yeah, and there's no, I suppose royalty films. I suppose like that old Henry VIII ones like that. I think there's some like that. So
I've put a few of those on there. We're gonna enjoy those.
But definitely. So there we go. So next is going to be Halloween, followed by Casino. So that's it. And then what madness will come next? I like it. Film. I do like it. Every time we do a spin, everybody just goes silent. It's just
the suspense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good.
I'm going to say this ahead of time. I'm just letting you all know. I know I committed to reading the books, but did you put it on the list? Because I sure as heck didn't.
What's that?
Which one?
No, you didn't. Thank God. Okay, Gone with the Wind is not on.
Oh,
I'm not reading that book. I don't like the film, and I'm not reading the book.
There are some.
not on the
Yeah,
list. Yeah.
I think the longest one I think we put as Lord of the Rings trilogy.
But I've read them
Maybe
a
the
few
longest?
times, so I can
I'm
get through them
thinking-
quickly,
yeah.
very
Trying
quickly.
to think.
Mhm.
No, just I'm looking down there because I've got the books down there. Like, did I put anything that would be a mean book? Like, really, like,
Find the
oh.
biggest book.
Yeah. I suppose if we got anything by like we got any Greek ones, I can't remember if we did. You have to read like anything by Homer or something like that. Like, it might be a bit difficult, but we haven't got biblical, so you're okay by getting away from reading.
Yeah, I can get through Shakespeare really fast. I know my Shakespeare. I can get through that really quickly. But
I don't think we got. Did we got any Shakespeare on there?
I put one on there, so there's one on there.
Is that there? You go. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But yeah, anything else to add like that? So.
Oh my gosh! Well, how about chat? I mean,
Yeah,
how
Chat.
do you rate this film, Chat? Abe, Dirk, you obviously have
Dirk, yeah,
watched
he's got some insight. Give me, yeah, that's it. Let's hold it. Let's state it properly. I'm gonna put myself off camera.
Oh, we're gonna have a poll. Are we gonna have a poll?
I'm gonna figure out.
Awesome! Is this our first poll of Film Club?
I think so.
This is the inaugural, ladies and gentlemen. This is the inaugural poll of Film Club, not to be confused with the Wheel of Film.
Two very different things.
Two very different things.
Okay.
Very different things.
Oh. Doo-doo. Let me just put-
Now, do we have any more Steve McQueen movies on the list, or was this our only one?
We've got to have
I've
the
got the Blob.
Magnificent Seven. I hope someone.
I don't know. Did somebody put the Blob?
Let me see.
I'm not sure. I have to actually pull up the list.
Hmm.
So I would like to see more of his films now to kind of get a better idea of his filmography.
We need to amend the Wheel of Film. Neither one of us put the Magnificent Seven on the list. We're gonna have to go back after we get through the 279 on this list. Oof, there's a baddie. Oh, I'm not looking forward to that one.
What's that? That's Jay's pick.
The Never-Ending Story.
Oh, I put that on. I like that.
It's not my pick, I'll say that.
You did.
That is my pick because it's one of the movies I liked as a kid and I hate now.
So you're
I watched it and I love it. Yeah, because because they're making a remake as well, and it's the 40th anniversary this year.
Yeah, fair enough.
If we ever get it, that's it.
He
that's
admits
why.
it. He's just.
But I like it. No, but the Nothing is really used to scare the living hell out of me. All right, there we go.
All right,
so,
chat.
yeah.
What say you?
I do it like that. You only get 4 options. Yeah. So yeah, The Never-Ending Story. Yeah, I loved it. It's one of those movies, you know, as a kid, like you think it's absolutely great, and it used to scare you, and then you watch again, you're like, oh, this ain't very good. It's not very good. I'm not like, it's not good. It's not good. It's like that. So it's one of those ones. It's one of those. I was like, it's a classic. Everybody knows it. That's why I put it there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So it's one of those
really
ones.
Bad.
It is now, but as a kid, I loved it. All right, calm down. I'm going to remember my childhood. Not now.
Oh. I don't even think I watched it as a kid. I don't know. It just didn't look. Yeah, I didn't see the line. I've never seen The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe.
Which one though? Which one?
I've never read The Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe.
I watched the original one in school.
Neither one.
I
don't
think
the BBC version.
The
BBC version where the lion is literally doesn't move, and its head just does that. It's really like it's someone have to like British in the chat will have to let me know. There's a BBC version. They did it really. It's like Pride and Prejudice. You know, the British like long version of it. It's kind of like over.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like Pride and Prejudice. Help me.
No, but it's just like that. It's like that era. You know, like the modern Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
Movie isn't very good. If you look at the BBC version, it goes over like hours, like 6, 7, 8 hours.
It's like
same as Lion and the Witch. It's one of those ones. It's like mini series. The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe done that. It's really good, but not like it's very well acted. It goes to the book on both accounts, but it doesn't look. It looks a bit unneat. It's like they didn't put much money into it, and it's like that. But like Hollywood have tried to do it over and over again, so
Got it. Okay.
it's like that. So yeah, but if you ever get the Pride and Prejudice TV series, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, absolutely. Like yeah, if you
I
want to
think
watch,
we would have had that on BBC. I'm sure we would have had it
yeah,
on
but it's
BBC.
a bit yeah, but
Not
it's TV.
BBC,
It's TV.
public
It's TV.
television.
Yeah.
Public
It would have
television.
been, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like 12, like it is like a 12, like that one is long. It's like 12 hours. It's like that. It just carries on like you can't binge watch it. It's one of those ones that take days to do. But that same as the Lion Witch.
Yeah, those would be good PBS minis, not BBC,
Yeah.
PBS miniseries.
Yeah.
All right. So
That's
what did
it.
the
Should
chat say?
We do PBS miniseries.
Yes. Yes.
So, at the moment, 86% 10 to 8 and 14% 7 to 5. There we
That's
go.
fair. That's fair.
And I'm going to venture to guess that 7 to 5 is mostly leaning towards the 7. So I feel like 7 to 8's the consistent range for this one.
Yeah, it's probably Abe who did it as well. we don't take his opinion too seriously.
It's always Abe. Why is it always Abe?
Yeah, Abe. Let us down. But yeah.
Well, I highly, highly recommend the book by Paul Brickhill and everything that's written in terms of the firsthand accounts. And I forgot to mention the memoirs of the Commandant von Lindener. That's next on my list. I am going to read that as well because I enjoyed so many of the accounts of this event, and I would not have done it had not the Wheel of Film demanded that we watch this film, and I'm so glad that I did. So glad that I did.
Yeah, I think this is the Wheel. I think we've always said this when it comes up, even though you might have watched it or you might have recommended it or you want to recommend it. When it comes up, yeah, everybody's like, "Ooh, I like that." So, it's like that. So it's a good way. It makes you rewatch. And I said that we always say it. Do your homework because there's no like. Okay, even with Never Ending Story, it's not a stinker. It's not. You're not gonna.
You're gonna keep going on about the Never Ending Story.
It's not like modern.
Like,
it's gonna anger you. It's not like that. It's gonna anger you. Movie. Right. These are good ones to reminisce. There's gonna be a lot of people, reminisce. There's some on there reminisce, and we'd like agree, like disagree. Like Saturday Night Fever. I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
but but I still would recommend it. So it's like
well, I actually have no opinion of Never Ending Story because I've only seen bits and pieces of it over time. Mostly him just flying on whatever that creature is. So
it's
I
all about
have no notions going into it. So it'll be another fresh take for me.
There we go, but we might not get it for like a while, so don't worry.
Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't even. Here I am thinking we picked it for a second.
We don't pick it. Don't worry.
Place a casino.
We'll be doing this until we're in our 90s, and Jay, you'll be in your 30s by that point, so or your 40s. So
there you go. Abe said it right. It's Never Ending Story.
that song's about as much as I know about it.
Just a silly song. And
we could do one really bad movies that we hate, except for there'd be probably a couple of.
I want to do the bad movies that we love. We've talked about that before. Like, what are the bad movies that are like those guilty pleasures, or they're not as bad as we thought they were? And
is Highlander in chat? He'll say Braveheart again.
Let's not get us started. You know what we didn't do real quick? I forgot to mention, and we didn't put the numbers up. Can I put the numbers up? Oh my gosh!
That's right. That's right.
Didn't put my numbers up here. Let me make sure I still have it here handy. There it is. So I did want to share as much as we all. I think we'll say the word cherish this film for sure. Oh heck! Hang on. Let me try again. Cancel. Try again. Okay. Share screen. As much as we. Here we go. Cherish this film. It did not get box office acclaim. It made money. So it was made for a budget of $3.8 million in 1962-63, and it made 11.7 million. So today that would be 120 million. It tripled, it tripled its budget, which is good. but it didn't win any major awards, not even for the soundtrack, not even for the song.
Wow.
But it has, as I've put, enduring popularity in the UK and the United States for sure. In 1963, here's what it was. It was ranked number 10 for the year. And it was the number one film of that year was Cleopatra. Whole story about that. How the West Was Won. It's a mad, 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 mad world. A couple of others on the, this is like kind of these, kind of going from the grand Hollywood films into some slight silliness. The number 6 movie of the year was The Son of Flubber. And number 8 was Bye Bye Birdie. So really a strange year. Like I guess, the top 3, Cleopatra, How the West Was Won, and It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, kind of iconic. The rest were kind of so-so, and The Great Escape coming in at number 10 for that year.
One thing I wanted to pick up, and I have to rewatch it. I don't think a single woman has a line.
Yeah, there's no women.
There's any women in the
outside even of, even the town. I don't think they even.
Bus.
Yeah, I think they have one. Somebody gives a slight scream, maybe when one gets shot at the train station.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a single actual female line in
not
this
with
whole
a legitimate
movie.
role.
No.
There's the ones at the train station, and then as they get onto the bus, when McDonald accidentally speaks in English, they kind of, after they kind of set the order to follow McDonald and Bartlett, they kind of just rush a few of the other people who are still trying to get on the bus onto the bus. I remember there being a few women there, but in terms of an actual speaking role or a name or anything, no,
nothing at all. I was like that.
Wow. So you're saying
in
this
fairness, does make sense.
This is not a DEI test. Oh my God,
Bechdel test today. They wouldn't be able to make this film today. They'd have to put some woman in a uniform and give her stars. And
Sydney Sweeney would play Steve McQueen's character nowadays, so you can look forward to something like that.
But
no, I mean, it makes sense given the time frame, given that it's a war movie,
that's
specifically
the thing,
a prisoner of war movie. I mean,
but that's the thing is
women going to fit
like
into
it's literally with today's checklist. They were like, it makes sense not to do that. Like they wouldn't dare, and that's why like it's like that. It's things like it's even though I think Charles Bronson terrible Polish like accent he's got in this. He's like
here's
doing
what's
this weird.
You know what's ridiculous about that is guess what his ethnicity is.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I thought it would be like it'd be.
He's
like
Lithuanian, which is right next door to Poland. So. He's always criticized for he's one of those actors who's like an quote ethnic actor. He can play different ethnicities. He can come off as Hispanic. He can come off as, any kind of European, ancestry. And yet, I thought both his Polish and his Russian was terrible. And he's Lithuanian. And
I had to look up what he was actually playing because I was like, what accent is he
I thought he was attempting to be Russian. I could not, and that was before he was in the Russian line trying to do a Russian accent. I thought it was maybe Russian the first I heard it, but as the movie went on, I had no idea what.
Yeah, it was just like grindy. It was just like you're trying to do.
It came off as like some Eastern European style of accent was the best I could pinpoint.
He grew up in Appalachia, dirt poor, in a household that only spoke Lithuanian. He didn't even speak English until he was older. His father was a coal miner. He was Roman Catholic. He was the 11th of 15 children.
Wow.
The coal car tracks that ran out of the mine was literally a few yards away from his front door. His father was Vladislavas Valteris Paulinus Bekniewski.
I'll let you say that 5 times.
Charles's name
I can't even say it once.
Charles's real name is Charles Dennis Buchninski. So.
Well, Steve McQueen's name is not Steve McQueen. It's like Stephen Andrews or something, isn't it? I think he changed.
Steve McQueen.
I'm sure in the Blob He's not accredited as Steve McQueen. It's Stephen Andrews, and he had to change it because there was another Stephen Andrews.
Interestingly enough, why is The Great Escape not on his resume here? Oh, this is so weird. That's fine.
I'm sure he's not Steve McQueen.
Oh, I'm sure not.
But that was the thing back in that you couldn't have if somebody had registered that name in the guild. No, sorry, can't have that. It's already taken. Like, what? It's like, yeah, a bit silly.
It was so there couldn't be, it couldn't be bait and switch, I guess, if your name was on the marquee and you drew in his name. No, guess what? His name is Terrence Stephen McQueen.
No, Terrence. Okay.
Terrence.
Sure, what was he in the Blob then? Because I'm sure in the Blob.
Oh, in the Blob?
In the Blob, I'm sure he is not credited as Steve McQueen. Maybe he changed it and then Terrence. That's a good name, isn't it? Terrence.
Let's see, the Blob.
That's very British. Hello, Terrence.
Hello, Terrence. In the Blob, he's listed as Steve McQueen.
Okay, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I always thought
Stephen McQueen. It is Stephen McQueen.
Stephen. There you go.
But his character is Steve Andrews in.
That's where I go.
In the film.
There you go.
I always get the Blob and the Thing mixed up. I know, totally different.
How can you get the Blob and the Thing?
I can't. I know, because they're both something.
Oh my god! I watched the Thing. That must be on the list. The original.
The Thing is good. The Blob is stupid.
Not the remake from whenever, like in 2000. That's bloody awful.
Is the Thing? Yes, the Thing 82. You specifically put the Thing 1982.
Yeah, you had to be 82. Yeah. Oh my god! If you watch, I think it's 2000. It's absolutely dreadful. It's literally.
No, that one's good.
That's it. But yeah, the Thing is good. Hold it, Jay. Have you seen the Thing?
No.
Oh, see,
we're gonna have so much fun.
It's the end scene. The end scene. Abe knows what I'm talking about. The end scene. He'll love that. He loves a good horror movie.
So, for sure. Awesome. Well, I'm updating the list now to indicate that Casino is next.
Casino. Nice. Okay. Anyway, should we wrap it up? So, Jay, you're back. You're back from your honeymoon.
Yep.
Getting suntanned up.
Oh yeah.
Living the life of Riley with your new wife. Not like you had an old wife, but your wife.
The new model.
We're sorry, Mrs. Nerd Takes. We're really sorry, Mrs. Nerd
Takes. But you know what I mean. But what you getting back into as you've had some time
kind
off?
of slowly getting back into everything here. Still a little bit of a busy weekend with the wedding tomorrow and all that. So no streams, I don't think, planned until probably Tuesday, because then after the wedding, we have in the States here, we have Labor Day. It's Labor Day weekend, so we're all off on work Monday. But I have some last minute fantasy football draft scheduled for Monday. So bit of a busy weekend here.
Who are you picking? Arsenal, Man United?
Oh no, real football, American football.
Yeah, that is real football. The American football.
Yeah. Yep. The American one, the real one.
There's only one feet football.
Yeah, well, the kicker takes it to the field goal. That counts.
I always think that. Why is it? Why did somebody like football? Like,
I couldn't explain why they called it.
Yeah, we got that. Like, it's weird.
Especially knowing that soccer, just for the difference of being able to say it without being confusing, especially knowing that soccer had already taken the name football and established it for so long. I don't know why they decided to copy it. Makes no sense.
Isn't it one of those weird ones where it's like where basketball came across because somebody read the rules to netball wrong, and basketball came across. Isn't American football just a continuation of rugby? And but rugby's called rugby, and then they went football. But
I think
the only difference is you run forward, and it's like, but you pass forward, and it's like, but you don't kick the ball. It's like in rugby, if you actually figure, they run the ball more, but they also kick the ball more. And it's like, I'd never got it. I was like, there's more in like that, because all you do is a lot of field goals, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that's that and the kickoff. It's the only time you're kicking the ball. Yeah, or punt too. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like,
I have absolutely no idea why they named it what they did, but I do have that on Monday too. So a bit of a busy weekend to kind of close out the day.
It's still called Rounders. Don't care what you say. Baseball's still round us.
No, it's baseball.
Don't start with that.
Listen, you guys don't get to name America's pastime too. All right, you guys started the language. Let us have this one. But yeah, so I think stream's starting back up on Tuesday. In the meantime, I'm making a few little videos of beating some of the bosses in that Wukong game that everybody's playing right now. So
oh yeah,
that's a little bit of kind of filler content that I'm putting out just between my next review, which I have to do, which I'm not even sure what movie that's going to be. So really just getting back into the swing of things. So everything is very flexible and very fluid right now in terms of the Nerd Takes channel. So hopefully by next week, I'll have something a little bit more steady again.
Excellent.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
And Sandy, you're doing longer ones. Longer. You just did the Australian.
I did
NBC?
that. It takes a long time to do those studies. So the videos I put together are just actually a short version of a long documented architectural study that I've published. So I haven't selected my next one yet. I think it's going to be the Embassy of Haiti. So that's the next one that I've done a short on. And now we're beginning the architectural study of that. So if anyone is interested in really, really deep, not interesting history stuff, that's where
it's interesting. I've watched it. It's interesting.
My Sandy Q channel is really just documenting the studies that I participate in. So whether it's the Civil War or the architectural studies I do, it's to log my research. And if anyone can find any value in it, that's super awesome. My other channel is Primary Sources, and that's where I publish instruction on research methodology, particularly around history, family history, those sort of things. So I'm preparing. I have some courses to teach this fall. So I'm tidying up my course materials, and then that will result in a whole bunch of other stuff produced on that channel. So again, other part of my life is history stuff. I am the lady in the library most of my life. But this is fun. I think I am going to do a video on the Great Escape, though. I think I am going to definitely go visit Fort Hunt and put something together on that. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So everybody go and check out both the channels. They're in the link. Give them a sub, as I always say. Yeah. Myself, I literally don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to jump in when I do a video and I'll do some more. I might jump in a game, not that. So I've been playing Scum offline only because scheduling, working at the same time is very hard. I've been playing a lot with my kid. He's going mad at the moment. He's got his schedule changed.
Oh my God, the short you put out with him following the tortoise, eating the lettuce.
No, it wasn't. Did you see the first one where he called it flower poo? He said it was flower poo first. He's like, and he was like, well, see, like, he watched the first. There's two shorts out there. There's the shorter one just before it, and he corrects himself later. And because I was like, oh, what's he doing? And he's like really quiet, and then he was just like, he's eating flower poo. And then mate, I was just pissing myself, and he's like that, and he's like, but because you can't see his face, but how he says it, I was just like, oh my God, I'm wetting myself. It's just like that, and it was like hard for me to hold the camera. And then the second one, I let him go like that, and he was eating lettuce, and then he just was like, where's he going, kind of thing, and he's like that. So it was.
So everyone in chat, you have to check out Stasis Geek Shorts, because the charming voice of your son will brighten every day. That is just the most darling little videos.
Oh, I should have put the one you didn't see on it, because it made me giggle. Let me just give it. It did. It just was because I wasn't expecting when he said it. So let's do it. Here we go. I'll probably get copyrighted for this.
Hey, it happened to me.
Yeah. Here we go. Let's see it. Oh, let's turn it out.
I don't know. Eating flower poop.
There you go.
I don't know. Eating flower poop.
So he must have heard you call lettuce flour.
I don't know. No, he's got a thing because he's really good at doing his potty training really well. So
Mhm.
he's getting a little bit confused of like when poop is not poop and like that.
When food
It's
becomes
like
poop.
that. Yeah, it's like that. No, that's
The
not
chain of
what
events
it is.
there.
Yeah. So, but he's
He's
obsessed with
adorable.
Gojira at the moment. So it's yeah, he's like he now he's annoyed though because he tries to stroke him like a cat.
Mhm.
Now he wants the cat because one of friends got a cat and he's like, it's like not nice, and he's like that. And of course he lets him do his like scowls and everything. He doesn't mind. Like he's that old. Like he's like I think like 98 now. And he's
crazy.
just like, yeah, and he's just like ooh, like, not nice, not nice. But yeah, so that's
Are you going to play any more planetaries?
I am. There's been an update, I think yesterday or today. So I'm
played
going to think of doing
today.
that.
Yeah.
Have they sorted out the server thing? Have they yet?
It's much better, but there's stuff like I wish we could co-op play because
Yeah.
there's stuff
We'll
you
have
need
to arrange it because
Yeah.
we have to arrange that. And did you see they've done a new game on the front?
Yes, I saw. I don't know how I feel about it because I haven't played it in a while, but I want to finish like that 60
I
run.
know.
But
Tomby, we need to do it.
You know, you were streaming planetaries and those ships that were hovering over you, and you were like, what's going on here? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So you can build your own. You can build your own. I'm not there yet. I'm building the pad. You know, in those other bases, there's the pad where the ships land. You can build that. So I'm in the process of.
We have to get it
building
because you're like, I've got the dedicated server that's not working, and I can give you the thing to it, but it's really complicated.
Nice.
They need to sort it out. They need to
They
sort it
do.
out because I think the co-op one having loads of people, that's got a lot of promise. Go and watch my streams, guys. It's got a lot of promises.
Yeah.
Very, very buggy. And last time I played it offline, it kind of reduced some of the bugs. But yeah, we'll have to.
It's better now, and there are many, many more creatures.
Well, that's things I like that. Also, that the Greek one. Was it Dawn of Defiance?
Oh
I was
yeah,
interested in that one. I love Greek mythology, so that one had my interest.
Yeah, very, very good. It leaves a little bit more development. It's very early access, but literally the premise of it and the controls, the like how you do stuff, it's very Conan like. It's like they just had this new build, and it just like they've just gone. People like building, so they've introduced a lot that is very like Conan build. So Mr. Porkchop probably do a massive tower. We all know that if he ever plays it, I think he owns it. But otherwise from that, yeah, it's a good one. But yeah, I'm just going to jump in and out. Might play Scum Online. Started that with Wolfie. That has been a bit of fun, and Nico. So yeah, gotten into that a little bit. So they're like, go on, you like it. I was like, oh, I'm not too sure. It's very addictive. So that's a good.
That's what happens.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't know. Oh, this is good. Yeah, but otherwise than that, I need to do some more pre-recorded. Just like, oh, I don't know what to talk about. I'm like, so,
what recommendations did you leave off on? Was it Miss Martial Arts? What did you?
I'm on Thriller next. I need to do it.
Okay, thrillers. Okay.
Yeah, I need to watch a couple of them. I've got things. I just need to rewatch around about 2 or 3 movies, because I'm like, I like them. Are they still going to be on the list? Because that's what I do. I watch.
We'll get to work, man.
That's it. And I'm on season 5 of Buffy as well, so I need to kind of finish that and might do my Buffy thing of my good episodes and bad episodes and my general thing of Buffy, and then I might rewatch Angel again. I'm not too sure, but yeah, Buffy.
Yeah, I think you need to.
But the worst thing is, I watch Buffy. This is a really true story. I watch Buffy when I'm in bed because I'm a terrible sleeper. And I watch probably like 3 episodes. But my girlfriend watches the first 10 minutes of the first episode and falls asleep. And then expects me the next day to tell her what happened, to catch her up. Right. And I'm like, do you remember just like what happened? I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, she got freaked out because I said she doesn't like horrors. The Gentleman episode, but like they take the voices away. She woke up halfway through that and was like, what the...
That's a creepy thing to wake up to.
Yeah, yeah, it's like creepy. So I make sure that I don't watch anything really creepy. But I really want. I think it's like the anniversary. I think I saw today of Jeepers Creepers, and I like that movie, so I might watch that. It's not a great one. It's just a bit of fun one. I saw that as somebody was like, it's anniversary of it. I was like, bloody hell. So, but then I think it's the date is the 27 year anniversary of Princess Diana's death as well. I saw that.
Oh, it is. That's right.
Yeah, and I was like, bloody
That's right.
making me old, making me feel old.
Oh, me too. I was hiking.
Remember?
I know exactly where it was because I was, as a kid, I thought she was so cool, just like most American girls did at the time. And I was hiking in Washington State. I was on Mount Rainier, so that's the day I passed 4,000 some odd feet on Mount Rainier, and coming back down in the car ride is when, and so we were 5, 6, 7, 8 hours ahead of the UK or behind the UK, sorry. And so she had died. It was still like 10 o'clock at night here, but it was, you guys were asleep when she officially had died, because it was on the drive home that that we, I didn't hear she was in an accident because I was hiking, and then in the car she had died, and I was a kid, not a kid, young person, but that I remember that. That's very sad.
I got woken up by my mum.
Oh.
And I was like, what's going on? But I was a teenage, like early teenager.
Yeah.
I wasn't very happy getting woken up that early. I remember that because my mum was a florist. So she had to go into London to do like deliveries and some other things. But she was getting up really early. And I was like, what are you waking me up for? And go away. Who cares? And I was like, wake up. With like, oh, yeah. Okay. That's quite important.
Wow.
That's it. But yeah, the old days. But everyone, have a great one. Is it Saturday?
Yep.
10 minutes till my Sunday. So we're gonna, on that note, gonna say goodbye. But next, everybody, homework next is Halloween. So I just want everybody to get your William Shatner masks on. That's it. So that will be one to talk about how that became a thing. But everybody, have a great one, and we'll see you in the next film club. But for now, goodbye.
Bye.
Take care.
Phew.
Woo.